And we are live. This is my first live stream in the new year. That is supposed to be going to YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. So I'm sort of experimenting on you guys because I'm trying to see if it's actually going to go to Rumble. I've got Rumble running in another browser, and I don't think it's working, which is kind of annoying. Okay. Mr. Ball Infinity is actually online. It's a good day. It must be the new year. Okay. Bloody hell. How about now? Yes, no. Okay. So YouTube guys can hear me and see me. Rumble guys probably can't. No, Rumble is live. Yes. But Rumble is live with a delay. Okay. All right, guys. I think I'm going to start. There are a few people watching. So the intent of this particular show is really, I don't have a long pre-prepared speech. I'll talk a little bit about different things I saw at SHOT Show, and but this is really about you asking questions about what I saw, comments on what I said, brands you wonder about. The show itself was. The show itself was interesting. Quite a few large companies were not there, like Vortex, SIG, CZ, a bunch of companies were not there. A lot of smaller companies were. It was generally a well-attended show. I got the feel that, in principle, the show was probably a little bit less attended, but the people who needed to be there, they were there. The conversations I had were very substantive, so much so that I ended up spending, I think, too much time, honestly, at quite a few booths. And there are several that I really wanted to visit that I didn't get a chance to do so, simply because I ran out of time. On one hand, it's kind of upsetting. On the other hand, it was kind of the quantity of people there went down, but the quality stayed the same, or even went up. So that was kind of interesting. Will, the PRS shooter guy, I don't know how to refer to him. He's a good friend. He was at the show with me. I'm about to add him to the live cast. I did not really get a chance to talk to him since the show, so I'm kind of curious about his take on a lot of stuff. So I will talk a little bit. I'll add him to the stream in a moment, and I'll let him go over his thoughts, and we'll go from there. Couple other people may join us. Slev Guns and Northwest Guns might stop by as well. I give them the link. This is really intended to be a discussion in many ways. Oh, Ryan is here. It was nice to meet you as well, sir. All right, I'm going to add Will to the stream. Will, you ready? Will is ready. Will was born ready.
Always ready.
Always ready. So when I was a little boy, growing up in the Soviet Union, we had this organization called the Young Pioneers. It's like communists in training. It's one of those things we used to do in the Soviet Union, where it's one of those voluntary mandatory thing. Technically, it's voluntary, but try to opt out. I'll see how you do.
Okay.
And the slogan of the Young Pioneers was, "They were always ready, presumably to defend the communist motherland," or something along those lines. So whenever I hear Will cheerfully say "always ready," I imagine you with a red tie and
All right.
About that. All right. So we've got a few. Mr. Drew Bradley goes, "How are you, good sir?" And everybody in the chat, glad to see a live show today. Yeah, I have to apologize, guys. So what happened after SHOT Show is that there was a good thing and a bad thing. When I got back home from SHOT Show, I figured out, if some of you remember, I was really, really sick just before, like a week before SHOT Show. And my brother had COVID, and I was absolutely convinced that I had COVID. It turns out that before SHOT Show, I did not have COVID. I had COVID after SHOT Show. So I brought COVID home, gave it to my wife and my daughter. And the first episode of COVID I had a bit over a year ago, that went into my lungs. I actually had a hard time breathing. This more recent variant, it's not nearly as bad, and it didn't go into the lungs, so no breathing issues. It settled in my throat. I had spent like 2 weeks barely able to talk, and for me, talking and breathing are very similar. So it was rough, but I survived, and I'll drink to being able to talk again.
There you go.
And as always, if you can guess what's in here, and you can't, this is a very exotic drink. If you can guess what's in here, I'll send you a t-shirt, something. I am beginning to run out of t-shirts, so I'm trying to figure out what to do next. If you guys have ideas of what Dark Lord of Optics swag I should make, please voice them. All right. That having been said, Mr. Northwest Guns is in the chat. Hi, Derek. The link is in our Discord server. If you want to join me, you're more than welcome to. Let's start with this. So, Will, you and I have not had a chance to talk since SHOT.
Correct.
And, we walked around a little bit together, but you saw a lot of things at other times that I didn't.
Yes.
Did anything really jump out at you specifically, or in general? What did you think of SHOT in attendance, and how did it all go?
So in general, I think this year was a little underwhelming compared to other years. A lot of the big distributors or bigger companies weren't there. Vortex was absent, SIG was absent, and some of those, even some of the smaller ones. I know Tangent Theta had a booth, but none of the actual ATI guys were there because I stopped by.
Okay, guys, I'm going to have to go mute. I'm trying to buy a house and my realtor is calling me, so we'll continue, please.
No problem. But on the flip side of that, because there's always a positive and negative to both, the flip side is those of us that were there, we got to free roam and not have to wait for meetings and things like that and appointment times to go and talk to reps and everything like that at all the different booths. So we got a lot more done in a lot less time, which was great. In terms of specific items that really caught my eye, I think there were certain things that if they pan out are going to be really cool. And I don't want to limit this just to competition shooting because that's such a small niche of the market. So one of the main things that honestly really, really caught my eye, and this could be for almost anyone, as long as you're willing to pack the weight, is going to be the Torrey Pines spotter that has a ranging etched reticle in it and a laser range finder attached to it via Picatinny rail, but there's a data cable feed that goes from the rangefinder to an internal display, and it'll display your range, potentially your firing solution through a firing sort of program. I don't know if it's going to be AB or if it's going to be Hornady Fordhoff or Strelach or what the case is. But and then there's, because it's a built-in display and not an actual like rangefinder inside the spotter, what you can put on that display is almost endless. Like we saw an example where they actually had a microphone hooked up to the spotter and you could talk into the microphone and basically as a dictation, it would display the words on the display. And that's not something that's limited to just competition shooters. I think that that is something for almost any type of shooter, whether it's ELR or just guys that want to go out in the backcountry, or even range guys. Even hunters, if you're willing to pack the weight, I don't think that it would be a detriment there either. So that Torrey Pine spotter really was something that caught my eye for sure. Joe, where do I work? So funny enough, I actually work for a company called ESPN. It's a sports company, and I do some things on the sports side of the house. So to me, precision shooting and precision rifle is a sport, and I love sports. So that's part of the reason why I just fell in love with this entire thing, from the competition aspect, from the gear aspect, everything like that.
Okay, very interesting. So Yeah, I don't think that's the case. But anyhow, so that Torrey Pines spotter. So for a little bit of background, I'm sort of friendly with the guys at Torrey Pines, and I've been peripherally involved in the development of that spotter for about a year, a little more now. It has an edged reticle, which is something I did for them. It's a simple reticle. My biggest accomplishment there was to keep the reticle simple. You don't need a complicated reticle in a spotter.
Correct.
The idea with that thing is that there is an internal display in the spotter, and if nothing is connected to it, you don't see it. Right? There's a small beam splitter. They balanced it very nicely. You don't know it's there. When nothing external is connected, it's just a spotter with a reticle, front focal plane reticle. It's the same folded light pad design like the Hensoldt and Leupold Mark IV. That's that style. It should be pretty nice optically. I have not seen a production model yet. I'm going to get one fairly soon. They're running the first production lot now, and I'll work it out and we'll take a look at it. I got involved with this thing for one reason and one reason only. I want something high magnification with a laser rangefinder where I can see the range while looking through the scope. Right? That's basically as simple as that. I would have taken a high magnification binocular, a spotter, anything. And I like the idea of having the laser rangefinder external because when you start integrating it internally, you start playing with the optical system. And on a lot of stuff, you don't see it, but it's hard to make it truly transparent. And the way they're doing it in this system, I think, is largely leaving the optical system alone. I think it has a lot of potential. Will and I both liked it. I think you liked it. You like the idea. The proof is in the pudding, right? Before we get too excited, I need to look at it. I need to take it out, look through it in different complicated environmental conditions. So Slev Gaz just joined us. I'll add him to the stream in a moment. Give me 1 sec. I will say this. So they showed me quite a few months ago, actually, what they thought would be a first production prototype, and the glass wasn't good enough. And I told them that, and they gave me a lot of dirty looks, and they didn't talk to me for a few months, and then they redesigned it, which is a good sign. Right? So that's kind of how you want a company to react. And the best I could tell at SHOT Show, the spotter that I saw there, that Will and I were looking at together, was, from what I was able to see, was much improved compared to that prototype I saw 7-8 months ago. From what you could tell inside SHOT Show. So I'm hopeful, and from a technology standpoint, that was I agree with you. I think it was one of the more exciting things we saw, right?
Yeah, for me, it's one of those things where I still have a couple of questions on how that is going to work in terms of some technical features of it. Like, for example, how easy or difficult is it going to be to zero the laser to the aiming reticle inside the spotter? And how sensitive is it going to be if you, say, accidentally bump the external rangefinder? Is it going to obviously shift the zero away from the aiming reticle? But despite all of that, I think one thing that we see in this industry as a whole is somebody's got to be the first one to do something. And if somebody's the first one to do it, even if it costs way too much money, somebody else might say, hey, you know what? We can do that better and cheaper. And that's just kind of the snowball effect, right? We've seen that through a lot of different avenues in this sport. I mean, you think back to one of the very first sort of production precision rifles was the Ruger RPR. And then that sort of catapulted everything to where we are today with Tikas and Bagaras and everything else, and even smaller companies. So somebody's got to be the first. Somebody was the first finding bino, and now you have a multitude of options. I believe that the first range finding bino with AB in it, with applied ballistics built in, was the SIG. And now you have the SIG and the Vortex. And I believe this new Leica, the 10x32s, I believe those Bluetooth to AB. I'm not sure if they have AB on board, but the point is that it kind of shifts the entire market and more companies are willing to take a look. So this Torrey Pines spotter may not be the end all be all of this particular product, but I think that it's a great opening of the door?
Yes, a couple of things. There is more to it than just having applied ballistics in the binocular. So Vortex has an applied ballistics in a binocular. Now there is competition also for Vortex and SIG, and for applied ballistics. There are other people doing ballistic engines that you can integrate.
Yes.
Right, and because applied ballistics, and I'm friends with a couple of people there, but overall, they are not the easiest company to work with, as I heard. Right, I have no professional experience there. I know a couple of guys there. I like them; they're good people. But now there is competition for applied ballistics, and there's a million different binoculars that have laser rangefinders that are getting seriously good. Right, so this competition works both ways. So there is a quick question. So Mr. Slavganza is looking at me with a binocular. I'm going to add him to the stream, and then I'll answer the question. So Mr. Slavganz, I'm not entirely sure what exactly you're looking at in your basement using these binoculars.
Well, I'm such a Chad. My basement is like 100 yards long, so I'm looking to see if my sump pump.
Yeah.
No, it's funny. You guys were talking about the Vortex binos, and I actually have a demo pair here from Vortex. And it was actually funny. We were talking about like the SIG. I wanted to get those, but so I don't know which one you were talking about. But I mean, the whole SIG system. I mean, that's the one thing. It's like it's made for hunters. It's kind of like it's like the integration between the SIG rangefinder, the binos, with the SIG BDX scopes. I mean, that's really the whole purpose with them there. I was hoping that these do too, but I don't think they do. But I digress. Go answer your questions.
Yeah. So about alignment of the laser, it depends. There is beam divergence to play with. Depends on how well you've aligned the laser. By and large, because there is beam divergence to mess with, you have a good amount of tolerance in the laser alignment. And if I remember correctly, the laser rangefinder that Torrey Pines is using, in the pictures, Will had a short video on it. I have some pictures I'll start posting shortly. In the pictures, there is an older version of that laser rangefinder. I have a newer one that is a little bit more accurate. And it has a little built-in visible LED laser type thing. So you have visible indication of how to align the laser. To the spotter, you can do a little bit of experimentation. It's not that hard. So, but it's it's definitely doable. All right, Mr. Sigurdsson, it's good to see you here. All right, let's see. Rather than go and ignore all the questions as we talk, let's address a couple, and then we'll continue and see what else was interesting. JB, DLO, did you happen to get your eye on the new EOTech Voodoo 1 to 10 by 28? Interested in your first impressions? If so, especially illumination, brightness. Did you guys get a chance to look at that one? Because I spent quite a lot of time there.
I did not.
I thought I was inviting optics nerds to my live show, and apparently
It's
this is
EOTech,
this is just gun guys.
And even after talking to you, you're like, it's EOTech. I did not make it there. And actually, I apologize for the focus hunting. I'm going to throw on an ND filter, or worst case, I'm going to switch out to my regular lens. What I was doing immediately before this was the many faces of sloth photo shoot for thumbnail pictures and stuff. So I'm going to swap back the camera.
Okay, I'm going to take you out of the live feed then for a moment while you're messing with it. If you're going to do it now. All right, let me know when you're ready. Okay, so I did go and look at it quite carefully. I've got a guy I chat with, who I'm pretty friendly with. He's a good dude and a good shot, and he does some work with EOTech, so I wanted to meet him anyway. And while I was there, I went and looked at a new low power variable. It's a nice low power variable. I think it's a stock Light Optics Works design. The reticle is basically 3 reticles surrounded by this large circle, kind of the circle of death, whatever the hell EOTech refers to it. It is a conventional reticle illumination, conventional edged reticle illumination. It's reasonably bright. It's not nuclear bright, right? It's not like the diffractive reticles on the Razor Gen 3 or Night Force Attacker, that kind of stuff. It's reasonably bright. I think it'll work well in daylight, but it does not give you that nuclear bright dot, right? So they are using reticle features to stand out on a bright day, which is not necessarily a bad way to go. And given the price, I'm not sure I would expect anything else. But the scope looked pretty good. Best I can tell outside SHOT Show. The reticle was well conceived, in my opinion. I think it will be an interesting contender. The basic problem for EOTech is EOTech is coming out the same time as this scope, and this is the new primary arms PLXC, the compact 128 by 24. Also not nuclear bright reticle, same basic idea. There is a large reticle feature, kind of large donut that is illuminated, but this scope is quite small and light. It's roughly the size of the NX8, half-inch longer, about the same weight, but it's really easy to get behind. The eyepiece is very comfortable. So between this guy and EOTech and a couple other things that will be announced fairly soon, this battle in a $1,500-ish range is really intensifying. Ordinarily, I would have said just go get a Razer Gen 3, but it's no longer $2,000 now. It's got more expensive. Vortex raised prices. So Vortex has moved up. It's I think what $2,400. Did you get a chance to look, Will?
I have not seen the new pricing on the
I think it's like a $300 or $400 more, and they should charge more because they can't make them fast enough. So that leaves a lot of room for this and the EOTech and all those guys. We'll see how it goes, but it looked like a respectable scope. Let's see. Mr. Okay, so Slav Guns and Northwest Guns, you guys are both here. Are you ready to be nod if you're ready to be back to the stream? Mr. Slav Guns, Mr. Northwest Guns. All right, now we have. So we almost have a minyan. Well, not quite.
Well, but we have enough.
Do you guys know what that is? Heathen. It's
a minion. Yes, that is the official minimum number of people you need to have within a synagogue in order to conduct business.
Yeah, that's pretty much the case, right? But 4 is not enough. Otherwise, we'd have to do on-air circumcisions and start praying. But anyhow, gentlemen, nice of you to join me here. Let me see if there are any quick questions we want to address, and then I'm really curious what at SHOT Show really stood out to you. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So you guys are gun guys. What do you think about this? The impact of Aero Precision getting into the bolt action game. Who wants to take it first?
Are we asking about the gun, or are you asking about the impact that it's going to have on the broader sector? And until he gets there, I'll kind of give both. I don't think it's going to have any impact on the broader sector, simply because, we're just yet another company who's doing it. As far as the gun itself, I really like the chassis. I think it's going to put a little bit of pressure on MDT on the ACC chassis. I didn't get to shoot it. I didn't actually spend as much time as I wanted with that gun, simply because I was trying to look at it. A couple of fans identified me even without the red Adidas hoodie, and they demanded I squat with them and take a picture with them, which I was all too happy to comply with. But from what I recall, it was actually it was a good looking gun. You can't really screw up a Remington action that bad unless you're.
Oh, please! Remington has been screwing it up for decades. Okay.
Well, that's Remington. That's why I said Remington. I think it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna put a little bit more price pressure, but I don't think it's like this something like amazing. I think it's nice, but yeah.
I did play around with it at SHOT Show, so I think the price point's gonna be nice. It's gonna hit. I think it's gonna hit the market with a little more of a bang than people are expecting. I think it's gonna put a few companies like MPA and stuff like that into going, okay, what can we do to be in this price point? Because
sorry, it's the same damn price point as everything else. They're saying like $1,200 or $1,300 for the action. It's the same price point
for the whole gun. For the whole gun, they're talking anywhere between 18 and 21.
All right.
It's going to depend on your contour of your barrel, if you have your chassis Cerakoted, what trigger you're going to put in it, and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I also got to play around with it. But here's the thing that I see. I don't think it's really going to put that much pressure on somebody like MPA or MDT at all, only because they're going to a higher segment, right? So I took a look at the ACC Gen 2, and that one is going to be priced above $1,500. So they're not worried about the 1,000 and under segment really, and neither is MPA because they have that new Matrix Pro, and that one is $1,650. So they're already going with the chassis in the opposite direction. Now, obviously, they're a lot more feature filled than the Aero chassis and Action, but I think it's just two different market segments. Because if you look at it, so MPA has the production gun, right? It's basically a Curtis Action in an MPA chassis, and it's just under $2,500. I don't think that they're gonna find a way to. I mean, the only way to get something like that cheaper would be as if you go to like a true stock like Remington 700 Action or a bigger manufacturer Action like a Tika or something and OEM that. But I don't think that's the route that those guys are going to take. As far as the impact, I think it's going to be similar to Daniel Defense in that Delta 5, right? Like we have been
Delta 5
in the AR world, but like no serious competitor is going to buy one. And then you'll get the guys that like know the name from the AR world and like, oh, yeah, Daniel Defense makes a bolt gun. Well, you know, are they any good? Because they have the brand recognition, right? Same thing with Aero. A lot of guys, you know, have their own parts.
Well, but here's the thing, though. A lot of the AR guys, if the moment they hear Aero Precision in the past 2 years, you run away because their quality control has gone to shit in the last couple of years. I mean, literally, it's like parts kits that 50% of the time things don't fit into the parts kit.
Yeah,
it's gotten that bad. So it's like I would run away from those.
Yeah, I think what's going to end up happening is the casual shooter that doesn't keep up with those things and just recognizes a name when they hear it are going to look towards it. I don't think it's a bad thing though, right? Like I think that there's always I mean, yes, there is oversaturation. Everybody and their mothers is making a bolt gun now, but I still think that it's good for the lower end people to have more options. I don't think it's a bad chassis. I don't think the Action is amazing. It was a little rough on the bolt close, a little stiff. But
I can agree with that.
For a whole gun, I don't think it's terrible. Would I personally advise somebody to go that route? Not necessarily, depending on your budget. I still think a Tika Tac A1 might be a slightly better way to go, only because I think Tika Actions are a little bit better as of right now. But I would want to spend more time behind the Aero to definitively make that call.
We need to get Mr. Bullets for Bucks here. He's convinced that Howe kicks Tika's ass. So that would be.
But here's the thing, though, Will. I mean, like going back to your comment about MPA and MDT going like up market. But I mean, yes. I mean, they're going further up market. But I can't speak for MPA. But doing the booth tour, doing a bunch of stuff with MDT. It's like I don't think they're saying screw it to the lower end market because I mean they have like what 7 or 8 different chassis, and it's not just going to be MDT ACC Gen 2. They still have the ESS, the LSS. I mean they still have a whole bunch more chassis. Plus, for now branching out into the Hunter with that was the Hunter 26-ounce chassis was like stupid light.
Yeah,
so, I mean I think that's where that one is going to be competing against.
Well, That Hunt 26 chassis is $1,600.
Yes, but not the wood one. The timber one is a lot less.
The timber one is a lot less, but it's also 4.5 to 5 pounds, so it's not really like a lightweight option.
But here's the thing, though. So even like looking at it, I'm staring at the Savage Elite Precision, which is the ACC chassis.
Yes.
Then they have the Savage Precision, which Mr. Savage Boy over there. I think it's the LSS chassis that they're using.
LSS XL.
Yeah, so like they're using that chassis. So, I mean, it's not like they're basically. I mean, we're still competing at that level, and there's no way Savage is paying them anywhere near the retail price. It just looks this way. It's like the only reason why the ACC Gen 2 chassis is going to cost $1,600 is because you have people like that up there, Mr. Competitor, who's willing to spend $1,600 or $1,700 on a piece of metal that's been milled out by a CNC machine.
I'll be honest with you. If I was going to go with a lightweight chassis or a stock, the new GRS lightweight system that they just created out of laminate was amazing.
Yeah,
I've got one heading this way. So
I've got a Org coming.
Yeah.
So
So I mean, here's the like honestly, so like we're competing at the higher price point. So I mean, speaking more on this, I mean, I don't think it's going to change anything for the PRS world, but what I think it will do is, I mean, it's going to kind of set the price point for a, let's call it like a mid-level, entry-level Lux, kind of like the full feature type chassis.
Yes.
Because I mean, prior to this, I mean, like the one that I thought was like totally Gucci, meaning it's for somebody who wants to have features but is never going to go shoot at a match, is the Books chassis. And even those are like $800, and that's like considered fairly expensive for it. So now basically to say, hey, we're going to ask $1,600 for a metal chassis that's going to be even more, it's a little absurd in my mind. But you know what, though? If I was a hardcore PRS guy, I'd be like, oh no, this is totally justified. I would reach out. So I have my $6,000 2011 sitting over there where each magazine is $250. And I can totally justify that. But God forbid HK charges $50 for a mag.
Yeah, I think you make a good point with it is going to stir up some things for the entry level guy that would maybe only at most go and shoot a couple of local level matches. And even if he does go to like a 2-day match, is not really going to be all that competitive and is going more for the experience and the fun than a true competitor. Because on the basis of it, like it's not a bad chassis. I don't think it looks great, like just from a aesthetic standpoint, it's pretty blocky and just very square, but it has all the like main features you look for: M-lock, squared off magwell to, you know, for a barricade stop. You know, you can put a weight kit on it. So I don't think it's bad at all.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not a bad chassis. The one thing I didn't like about it was the grip. But what's nice about it is it uses your standard AR-15 platform for grips.
Yeah.
So you can go get an Emperor, Penguin, or an Ergo, or something, whatever you're comfortable
So there is
using, and that's a nice option.
There is a new company that's doing grips. A couple of guys I know, just AR-15 grips. They're called the Rev something. The industrial designer behind there, he kind of understands how human hand works. Those things are actually stupid comfortable. For ARs, we'll see how they do with bolt guns. I have a couple. I'm going to start talking about them. Anyhow, so it sounds like everybody is convinced that air precision is not exactly going to set the world on fire, but competition is a good thing. That's kind of this whole discussion.
Oh yeah, I mean it's always good to have more competition out there and more options.
So before we move on from this topic, there is the next question up there. I will say this: so Air Precision is one of those companies that can actually do some damage there because they own a barrel company. They can do aluminum if they're able to get the QC stuff under control. I mean, they can do some damage. Well, the big question is not whether they can. The big question is whether they will.
Okay.
So, anyhow, Mr. Bullets for Bucks is wondering what is the most expensive part of a scope: labor, glass, metal. The answer to that is yes.
Marketing.
That's for Night Force, yes. No, glass. So everything in a high-end scope, everything has to be made very precisely. It then has to be assembled very precisely, right? So assembly actually costs a lot of money because you have to have reasonably capable people doing it, right? I mean, they don't have people in red Adidas suits doing this. They have professionals. So, damn it, that went over his head. I
heard something about suits, but your audio is a little subpar today.
Or I'm going to leave this one alone today.
Okay. All right, fine. But then,
but speaking of marketing, I asked you in the chat, but I don't think you got a response or you saw it. But somebody on the NJ Gun Forums Discord, they're asking about a scope that I totally completely missed. So Loophole has a new 1-8 or a new 1-10 or something like that.
They don't.
Do you know anything about it?
They have a new 1-6 Patrol. It's basically it's basically VX6 HD 1-6 with a different reticle. It's like it's a nice scope, but it's just a relabeling of their existing design.
Got it.
Okay. That's the Dark Lord's opinion. So, did you guys get a chance to see the new Razor Gen 36 to 36 anywhere at SHOT? Although it wasn't a few guns here and there.
I saw the new Burris,
the guns,
but I didn't see the new Razor.
Okay. Well, the new Razor kicks ass, basically. And
did you do a video on it already?
I did a little live thing when I just received it. But basically, it's I'm gonna do a better review at City on Marine Fire right now.
Here's
it's
the
going
problem
to
I see with the Gen 3s is,
yes.
especially that one particular one, no normal consumer is going to buy that one. That one's more on the lines for a competitor.
You'd be amazed at how many people will buy it.
I probably will be, but
Yeah.
to be honest,
And-
I think the Leopold Mark V is a good scope, and I think in being in a cheaper sector of it.
It's a good scope, but the Gen 3 is a better scope, and the difference is not small.
Okay, change my mind and send it to me. I'll try it. No.
Good luck with that one. It will be tried someday from my cold dead hands. No, it's we'll see how they have to be able to make it consistent. That's it, a simple one, right? Vortex stepped up into the territory of the fancy stuff. I mean,
Okay.
it's they're trying to get it to compete with the, so their goal, best I can tell, right? It's my my educated guesses. My educated guesses are usually fairly accurate. They needed a scope that was better than an attacker, and that puts pressure on the Z comps and tangents and all of those. And I think they succeeded. The big thing with this thing, the optical quality is good, mechanical quality is good, turret is interesting, very, very clever design, by the way, and all that. The big thing is that it's super user-friendly. I don't think I've ever seen a scope to date that is as comfortable to get behind at 36 power.
What do you mean by that?
Eye box, the proverbial eye box.
Okay.
There is more to it than just exit pupil. It's really, really easy to use on high magnification. It's really easy to use for weird ass shooting positions. It's gonna make a difference. Now, let's see if they can make it consistent and all that. But I remember when Vortex Razor Gen 2 came out, it was about $2,400, and it was a lot of money. And everybody said Vortex doesn't have the brand equity and all that sort of shit. It's been in production for how many years now? 8? Well, how long has Razor Gen 2 been out? 8, 9 years?
Gen 2
I don't know if it's been quite 8, but 6 or 7 for sure.
Definitely,
Yeah.
right? Purely by accident, not that long ago, I stumbled onto some production numbers of how many Razor Gen 2s Vortex shipped. I just about fell off my chair. Okay. And they were below $2,000 for last year and a half. Now they're above 2 again, but most of their existence they were over 2K, and they shipped a ton of those. It was ridiculous. Okay. I would not be surprised if they ship more. Let me put it this way: I don't like to make uneducated guesses, right? So there's always something behind what I say. I will be extremely surprised if they don't end up shipping more Razor Gen 3s than Gen 2s, and in less time. Okay. So let's take it at that. All right, Mr. Prone Wolf had another question. This is going to be a very short answer. So March made new 5 to 40 with a new eyepiece. I have not had a chance to see it. March kind of had a booth. There was nobody there. So I have no idea. I have not seen this scope. Let's see. Questions are kind of piling in, so guys, don't hesitate. Who is up to speed on nice 1-inch hunting scopes for larger rimfires? There's only one right answer.
I don't know. I really don't do anything with 1-inch tubes.
SWFA 2.5 to 10 by 32, Keycast 22 WinMax scope. Ian, back to guns. Mr. Card Shark says that Bushmaster is not going to be an absolute total screw up like they usually are.
It's a different company.
Yeah, it's all under new
I think the
ownership and
Bushmaster
everything now.
name may be cursed. I mean, anything that Remington touches is cursed to eternity. So.
But here's the thing, though. The BA-30 has absolutely nothing to do with Bushmaster, and this was actually a Franklin Armory design, and they just slapped the Bushmaster name.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
They're actually going to sell more. No, so Franklin Armory actually puts out, like, when I saw that, I'm like, I had to pull one of the guys aside, and I have a pretty decent relationship with Franklin Armory. They sponsored engine-gun-forums.com.
Okay. All right. So there is at least one person who's on my side here.
Okay, once again, the answer is it's a completely different company. So this was actually a design that was originally meant. So, I mean, Franklin Armory, they kind of made a name for themselves by doing like screw the AFT type of design. So for like they did a
binary trigger,
not
and all
like
that
even
crap.
like like they did a straight walled like 223 barrel. Just basically because that would be exempt from a lot of the California laws. So they did a lot of those type of designs. And this was going to be basically a way to get around a lot of it because it's not a semi-auto. But when the Bushmaster came up, I mean, this is actually a pretty good name for them. So they moved it and they did it as that. So it's a Franklin Armour design. I really like the gun. I think there's a from the I'm not gonna definitely not from the. I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure about from the PRS world. It's probably not good enough. But from just a target shooting, even just like maybe even like getting into longer range shooting, I think there's a lot to like with that gun. It's still going to take most of your AR-15 parts, and so I did a video on it. You can see me shooting it. It was real. After a couple of rounds, it gets really intuitive, and I do like it quite a bit. And also, I'm a big fan of the Bushmaster suppressor. I think for $5.99 MSRP,
Yes.
the BF30 is awesome. It sounded really good.
Yeah,
Will, did you get a chance to see that thing?
The Bushmaster, I did not.
Yeah, because I saw the name Bushmaster and walked the other way. So
You're
I'd
lost.
be really surprised. It's actually a very nicely set up rifle.
that's a straight pull, right?
Yes.
Spring assisted straight pull.
So they're trying to basically out impact Savage or something.
Completely
Hopefully
different.
they
I mean,
will.
so I shot the Bushmaster right before the Savage. The Savage Impulse, like the Savage Impulse Precision, just felt like grindy piece of crap. I was just completely like disheartened. And then I was reviewing the footage for everybody who shot the Impulse. 80% of the shots, it wouldn't eject the round. It was like especially by the end of the day, I mean, it just ran like hot garbage.
So
the Bushmaster actually ran really, really, really
so
well.
I reviewed the Impulse a while back. I don't know, maybe the one they sent me was a Gunwriter special. It ran like a clock. It was one of the most accurate production rifles I've ever seen in my life. But it may have been the only one because I really tried to buy it and they wouldn't let me. So I don't know.
Weird. Usually Savage lets anybody buy anything when they.
Yeah,
yeah, I tried,
Derek,
but they wanted it back.
Derek, but here's the thing, though. How many months do we have to wait to get our writer samples from Savage?
Oh, I know.
They made a special number of runs of just literally loaner guns for very important people or basically people who write for magazines and stuff. And they literally did short-term loans and all that stuff. And those you can't buy because they weren't making that many of them.
Gotcha.
The
one thing I can say about the Impulse, if you can get used to the straight pull action, I don't think it would be a bad rifle to run in PRS. I mean, they do it overseas. A lot of Russian PRS shooters use straight pulls. I just couldn't get used to it, even though it being just a few shots.
I'm sorry, are you talking about the Russian billionaires who are running PRS with Sacco TRGs?
Well, what I'm saying is, here's the problem, is we all got on the Impulse probably after it was already shot, 100, 200 times? I mean, this is a good way to see if this is actually going to build up a good tolerance for longevity without seeing how much cleaning it needs to have.
We shot it earlier in the day. I mean, we shot it like in the first couple hours, and it was already having issues.
All right.
Yeah, I did that later.
I found really good questions from Mr. Slav Guns.
Ooh.
So, yes. So could you just freaking send the trigger to the man so I don't have to hear about it every live cast?
Fine. I'll try to make something happen. But awesome. I don't know of a Slav Gones anywhere here. Drew, I'm disappointed.
I don't know. You're wearing a red Adidas suit. Slav Goons is very appropriate.
I do have I have a live premiere of the Russian ammo situation that went live 15 minutes ago. But I will give a shout out to Mr. Drew. He did send me a pair of Adidas, and these were actually signed by Run DMC.
What is Run DMC?
I can get behind that.
Well, yeah,
a rap artist.
No, seriously, what is Run DMC?
It
a
was
rap
like one of
artist.
the most iconic and original hip hop bands.
Oh, DMC, because I thought you were running DNC as a Democrat National Committee, so I was.
No, I was a registered Democrat when I was young and stupid, but run
Wow.
DMX. Oh my God, yeah, that was completely me. My bad. Woo.
What happened now?
That was all me. I did say DNC.
You did say DNC. Okay,
I
Freudian
did, yeah.
slip. All right, I'll let it slide. Okay, guys, I'm told that I need to control my chat. Let's keep it real.
You are.
I don't know what
This
that
is
means,
we were
but I think it
talking
means
about.
I'm missing questions.
No, it wasn't that because you let us talk for about 45 minutes about a gun and not an optic.
Oh,
This is the era
I
of precision
I
chat.
see what you mean. All right. Let's see if I can find something that will shut you up. Okay, discussion of arrow.
Ew,
Aha.
blackout.
All right, we're going to talk about guns a little bit. Then we'll see what we can do with optics.
Can we just move on?
So, I will say this: that Mr. Bullets for Bucks thinks that Howas, whatever, are a good gun, and they may very well be. The fundamental problem with Howa is that they are distributed by Legacy International, whatever they're called.
Legacy Sports International.
Legacy Sports.
Yep.
Yeah. And you guys know how I feel about the regional Remington company, right? So if you take a step down, you will find Legacy.
So
Yeah.
So you
I'm
feel
not
about the
touching
same
it.
with them
He
as you
feels
do
the
with
exact
Veldata?
same way. So Mr. Bullets for Bucks feels the exact same way about Legacy. We talk about this all the time.
I know, right? You
Will,
feel the
have you
same
ever
way
shot a
about
Howa
how
rifle?
I have shot some Howard rifles. I shot one recently in a KRG Bravo that a guy shoots at the local matches and things like that. I don't think they're bad at all. I just think that in my experience, from what I see at matches, out of the box, you got a better. And I'm not saying that there's a widespread problem with Howas, but I got a better bet of picking up a really, really accurate Tika out of the box as opposed to a really, really accurate Howa. If I had to grade it on like a 1 to 10, I'd say like 9.5 out of 10 Tikas like shoot really, really good with very minimal effort, and like 8 Howas out of 10 shoot really good with minimal effort.
I'll agree with that. But then let's also talk about the price point too.
Yeah, so it depends on. I mean, if you're talking true sub $1,000, okay, I guess. But it depends on what your purpose is for that gun as well.
Well, I mean, you can get a Howa for like $500-600, and you can get. I mean, you can literally get a Howa action, barreled action for. Well, I picked one up for $300.
Yeah, no matter what you say, it still comes from Legacy, and I'm not paying money for that.
I agree 100% for that. I agree
Anyhow, I
100%.
scoured the comments and I found an optics question.
There you go.
Yes, I saw
which
this.
makes me joyful. Did Element Optics release new product lines at SHOT Show?
Nope.
No, they did not. So Element did not have a booth. They had a suite in Palazzo like they always do. And the suite had an...
They shared a... I'm sorry, they shared a booth.
Element?
Yes.
They did not have a booth. Who did they share
They
a
did
booth
not
with?
have their own booth, but they shared a booth with Bullet Central, I believe.
Okay, yeah. They had a couple of things there. They did have a suite, and at the suite, they did have a couple of prototypes. Oh, and they had an open bar. I spent a lot of time there. But
where the hell is my invite? I gotta write an angry email right now.
You can write as many emails as you want. I pre-ordered specific booths, so they had it for me. Cheers.
Well, I'm still waiting for a set of rings from them.
Yeah, good luck.
Same
So
here.
all jokes aside, though, I spent before SHOT Show. I spent a few weeks with the prototype of the next scope that's going to come out, and I think they will do well. Let's put it this way. I can't release any information yet, but I think Will is going to like it.
Okay.
Derek will probably like it.
You know,
I don't know about slab guns. I don't know if it's for the Adidas people, but
I really like my Element optics I have.
so do
Okay,
I.
what is it closest to? Well, what
It's closest to my heart and Will's hobbies. I don't know.
Are we making a cheap?
No,
Well, I mean,
guys.
They need a better Nexus.
it's going to be better. Nexus is coming too, although the current one is very good. No, new product line. It's going to be a nice scope, really excellent turrets, very good feel, easy to get. It's a nice design. I think they need that. I think they need to expand their product line. So Element is kind of an interesting company. They are very short-staffed right now. Their growth have been very good. They've insisted on good QC. They worked with the good OEMs. They are sort of one of my companies to watch. And I remember 20 years ago, a little less. I was thinking there is this new company coming up. I thought like they were good people that were doing things the right way with a little luck and a little persistence.
Yep.
They could do well. It ended up doing okay. They're Vortex Optics. So I think Element has a couple of good people there. They're doing the right things. They're working with the right people. They're dealing with the OEMs in the right way. They have some funding.
The
I think they will do well.
I mean, the only problem is, and I guess this will also kind of relate into the question that Philip just put up. If they're getting killed in a lower end, so I mean, the Helix is a very nice scope, both the front focal plane and second focal plane. But for $499, I mean, it's tough to recommend that over an Arkin SH4 Gen 2 that's $449 and is much more feature packed. And the Titan, I love the Titan. But at $799, especially versus that new Arkin EP5, which is going to be $549, it's going to be rougher. I mean, the Titan, if the Titan was $550 or so in that price point,
correct,
that's would be really good for him.
Genuinely, you're making a good
bite
point.
my tongue on this one.
Yeah, you're making a good point, and they have, they have some Titan. But one of the things you're paying for is QC.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of Element scopes. I have not yet seen one that didn't track.
Yep.
Arkin had a ton of QC issues. They seem to have nipped them in the bud, right? So we'll see where it goes from here. But with Element, I know you kind of know what you're paying for, but you're right. There is strong price competition. They have to figure out how to do this. I didn't say success is guaranteed, but I think they will work through it. Later in the year, you will see an announcement or two from Element Optics, and I think that they will do well. Okay, seems like Element Optics has fallen out of the AD space. What is AD?
What is AD?
Who knows what AD means?
I have no clue.
No idea.
All right, so I'm
Ad
going to go back
space?
to the Bushmaster for a moment. I don't know.
Are they
Drew,
kinda like
please explain what you mean. Apparently, Mr. Bullets for Bucks found the Bushmaster that cycled kind of like a savage. And they got another one. And once again, just to prove my point, that I'm not alone here.
Oh my God.
And just for Derek, would you like me to insert a cheap shot at Savage here, or have I already done so?
Oh, you already
I
have.
think we're good. Okay.
It's Savage.
Yeah, it is Savage.
They may not make the prettiest rifles, but they do make some damn good accurate rifles out of the box.
Now, if only those were consistent.
Surprisingly enough, my 308 has been really consistent. The one I got in for review.
Yeah. No, it's like when a Savage shoots, it shoots really, really well. But like when it doesn't, it doesn't.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes if it's really if you get a Savage that doesn't shoot, you don't know if you got a rifle or a shotgun. It's a little concerning.
The price of one? No? Okay.
Advertisement. Okay. Element Optics fell out of the advertisement space. I guess if they're not sending out as many units.
That is probably true, but they've actually been moving a good amount of product. They had a little bit of a hard time satisfying the demand, but I think you'll see more from them in this coming year. Okay. Interesting question. Any thoughts on the new Vortex and JSWFC?
You're the Vortex guy.
Yeah, so I happen to have a lot of thoughts on them, and I'm doing an article on one. The basic problem, though, is that I'm almost done with that article. I'm going to send it to some powers that be because the Army is heavily restricting the information.
That thing. Okay. Yeah, now I know what you're talking about. Okay.
New generation squad weapon.
Fire control.
Yes.
The Army is heavily restricting what information can be out. I plan to do a live cast on this and why this thing is cool and why it is a big deal. But before I do that, I have to clear what I can disclose and what I cannot disclose, because there are two parts here. One is me wearing a gunwriter hat. Another one is a ton of NDAs and what I do for my day job, which is sort of related.
I mean, the thing
So
looks cool as hell.
Guys, this is the single coolest thing I've seen in my whole career in the shooting optics world. And it's not close. So
I think the only thing that would make it better is if they include. Remember 2 years ago when Trigicon came out with that lidar that tells the wind? If that was
Ventus.
I can tell you even less about that. Because there are several companies pursuing this. And
tell me
again,
where I
there are a
can
lot of
find more of
NDAs and some IP we kind of own and a few other things. So
well, let's put it this way: it's such a big deal that the ELR rules in Kinga 1 and Kinga 2, those devices are explicitly prohibited.
yes,
Yeah.
I saw that. That pissed me off to no end. But anyhow.
So, do you have a
How
better chance
dare
of
they
telling me
not
where I
make
can
it an
get more of
equipment
this?
race?
Why would you want more of that? Just get them to send you some ammo. Okay.
Because I prefer reloading.
Yeah.
More fun.
Ooh, this is good. Oh, but anyhow, so real quick.
Oh,
So AJ, I do plan to do a separate live cast on it, and I'll explain what they allow me to explain of how it works and why it is a big deal. I can explain why it's a big deal without going into too many details. Once I know what I can talk about, I'm going to do a separate live cast on this thing and explain why it is really, really a huge deal just from the functionality standpoint. Okay. So I apologize, I can't go into detail now. By next week, I should know what I can talk about, what I can't.
fair enough.
This is a very good point that I did not think of. So, Mr. King Yu-Hu, I do appreciate you've given me a new way to make fun of Bushmaster. This is good. I will use this.
Oh, man.
And we just learned that Drew adores something. I think I'm done with commenting on this one. Okay. AJ, any rumors if HK will release the MP7 this year?
I did not visit them.
I ran by their booth for a couple minutes, but everybody was too busy to talk to. I doubt it.
Yeah, I briefly stopped by, had a few conversations, but I actually, funny enough, I did kind of bring up the MP7, but that is, from at least what I was told, that is far and away on the back burner for them.
Okay, the one thing I got out of this whole discussion.
I think, if I remember correctly, the reason why they can't still bring it here is because it's still a modern produce. German laws won't allow them to export it here.
Correct.
So there would have to be something else that needs to be modified and made in the United States. And it's HK, so they're going to keep you on the loop for like another 5 years and then extort you and all the fanboys for a lot more money for suboptimal product.
So all I got out of this is that HK apparently is still in business. I thought they went bankrupt a long time ago.
Yeah, we're still better than you, and you know it.
Yeah. Okay, that's an optics question. Any of you go visit Holosun?
Yes.
Yes.
What did you think?
I think their new stuff is awesome.
So I wasn't too in the loop on the specific ones. I'll have to go back and review the video.
So SCS, if I remember correctly, is an open red dot site that feeds directly into the MOS footprint, and the EPS
that's
is
a solar
small,
charging one. Yeah,
pistol slide one that is enclosed.
There's one that's closed off. So the closed one I wasn't too crazy about. The solar charging one, I thought that was really, really cool. Apparently, one of the big things that they did with that red dot is that basically because it has the automatic illumination, they added an additional sensor in a different direction. So that, let's say, for example, if you have a flashlight, but you're still in a dark environment, it would balance out the illumination and the red dot. So, and it does it a lot quicker. Also, the new battery tech on there was pretty cool. They're saying roughly it should be about 7 years, but they're willing to warranty it anyway. So if you do have issues, they will replace it. I mean, Holosun, I mean, I kind of look at them kind of like the Vortex of the red dot type space. So I think they're going to stand behind their product. I think it looked pretty good. I do think that it was a lot of innovative type stuff in there. I'm looking forward to getting one and playing with it. The reticle system on there, it's pretty cool. I do like the fact that it's a green dot. For me, it's a lot easier to see than red. Also, that's why on all of my handguns,
And I can't believe I hear that from a man in the Reds Adidas suit.
Oh, green is all of my comp guns they use a green fiber optic dot instead of red. It's just much easier to pick out. It sticks out quite a bit easier. I honestly, I'm not. So I was just discussing it with the wife. So on the red Adidas, any booth that I went into, they're like, dude, where's your red tracksuit? Or like, why aren't you wearing red? I'm like, but I like the blue. It just feels better. But this just kind of has become the brand. So I'm stuck with it. I'm pigeonholed into red. But no, so going back to the dots, very good. They have a new flashlight that's coming out, which also seems interesting. But yeah, it's Holosun.
I expect Holosun to make competent red dot sights. I don't know how excited I am necessarily about the new options. I think they're running out of ideas, but the smaller red dot sights are good.
Apparently, they did have a couple more ideas. They are discussing those in the video. I'll try to put it up a little bit closer. So maybe within the next 2 weeks, I'll have that video, or just make sure to follow my channel and ask me, and then I'll upload it so you can actually view it before the public release. I have no problems with that.
Okay. It's just for the record, Steven is still fighting the Hova fight.
It's a good company. It's just the distributors are douchebags. And I can say this because I'm on your channel.
There we go. How was the Brownells MPO 126? Weird.
Didn't even go over to that booth.
It's a perfectly respectable Japanese 126 with a really, really weird reticle. They're aiming at this competition thing. It's like a dot into concentric circles and stuff. It's just odd.
Are they trying to out primary arms?
No, it's a much weirder reticle.
Wow, okay.
So I don't know. Like a scope is fine. I'm not sure what this reticle is for. I'm guessing they size the circles for some targets that service rifle people use. But service rifle, I think, is limited to 4.5 power, unless they're going to open it up to 6. I don't know. Not a clue. Optomechanical, it looked perfectly fine. Okay. Where do the four of you stand on Arcan Optics? Will? What are your thoughts on Arcan Optics?
Okay,
Are you gonna throw out your Z comp and get an Arcan?
I mean, I'm not, but I think it depends on everybody's budget, right? So I've seen guys use them in local matches and things like that for guys that don't, want to plop down a whole bunch of money on a scope. A couple of things that I don't like, and this might just be a personal preference thing, but I don't like their reticle selection for the most part. I think it's pretty bad. At least for the competition scene, if you're just casually on the range and things like that, I don't think it'd be that bad. But for the competition scene, it's just not great reticles. I actually really like the turrets, and once you get past that whole fiasco of people trying to shill them on every website ever.
Okay, well, to be fair, they're still trying. I mean,
yeah,
we just got used to it pretty much.
I think that in and of itself gave the company as a whole such a negative stereotype and put them in such a negative place and a negative connotation.
I'm going to put an asterisk on there because I do want to get back to this point particularly. Sorry, Will.
Yeah, no problem. But other than that, I don't think that they're absolutely terrible for the price. I think they're in a good spot.
All right, Mr. Slavgan is going to talk for a long time, so let's get Derek's opinion first.
This was my SHOT Show was my first time ever actually seeing an Arcan Optic up close. I agree with Slav. I think with the price point, with the new EP5, it's going to be a good seller. But I don't know. We'll see how it does with marketing. And I have my opinions about the company, but I won't say them on your channel.
Why not? Do I look like I'm pulling punches a lot? I mean,
oh, okay. Well, I think one of the owners is a douchebag. So
which one of the Michaels?
right. So I was one of those.
There's
things
two.
I asked him if
There's
they would-
two. There's Mike Riley and Mike Benedict. The Riley is the short Navy SEAL dude. The Benedict is the
You did the
skinny
video
dude.
with the Riley.
No, it was Riley I talked to. So that says it all right there. He was fucking Navy. But to be honest with you, I mean, I asked them if they send me out one for T&E to borrow and send back, and they were pretty much, no, we don't know you, we don't know your channel, and I was like, wow, but you guys just want the free publicity of me doing a video with you right here. So I was kind of like,
Okay.
fuck off.
All right, Derek. I love you, but I'm sorry, but I got to put you in your place here a little bit. No one has to send you. No one has to send you jack shit.
Exactly. I agree.
No one has to. And
I'm not
I kind of. So it's like, I don't think you can call them douchebags for not wanting to send you out, and well, put out some more
it was
videos.
it was his approach on it. I mean, it's because I knew 4 or 5 other people that there was one guy who had a smaller channel than me, and he was like, cool. He gave him one right off the demo line right there.
Okay, let me guess. Did you tell them you were Army?
No, I wasn't Army.
What were you?
Long
discussion. I'll tell you. Well,
okay.
I'll call you and talk to you later.
Now I'm curious. We'll have the discussion.
All right. So honestly, I was.
Okay, I'm timing you 2 minutes or less.
Right. So honestly, I was a little bit surprised that they even accepted me into the booth because everybody thinks that I'm an art. Kidding. No, so I had a productive meeting with them. So there's a lot of kind of comments. We're talking about like the arc and chills that are out there. Yes, there's a legit issue with it. I do have an issue. I don't necessarily have an issue with the company. I have an issue with the people who are promoting it without disclosing all the facts, or at least disclosing what they're supposed to, which in turn, within a select group of, I guess, like your more knowledgeable people, after a while, you basically start seeing that it's the exact same people who are only painting a very, very good picture of a product without even trying to be objective. That's what I have a major issue with. But then again, that's a channel to channel thing. I did a video, let's say, for example, the Vortex Venom versus the Arcand SH4, and I thought I was fair and constructive between both of them. But I still had basically some people who thought that, like, oh, I must be wrong because I'm the only one who actually thought that the Venom had better image quality than the Arcand. Even though I talked to a couple other people, like, well, we agreed that the Venom did come off a little bit. Now, for the money, I think you're not going to find a more feature-packed scope for the money, either for the SH4 Gen 2 or now the EP5. My biggest issue with the scopes is the inconsistent quality control, and more specifically that, and I think Drew and a couple others can chime in there, is that they had QC letdowns. Now, I was happy that they were like really happy to see me, which was kind of like really cool. And I did speak with a couple of the owners, actually 2 out of 3, and kind of give them suggestions how they can easily implement the systems in the back end to make sure that a lot of the customer complaints and customer service issues do get resolved. And more importantly, they seemed very receptive and open on that. So that's what I was really, really, really glad about. And like I said, and I do hope that the QC issues are going to be resolved. And like I said, and if they are, for the money, the features wise, you're not going to find a better scope for the money. It's basically, I think it's as simple as that.
I think it's a reasonable summary. I didn't like the rollout. I think it was a bunch of bullshit. Arcand pays a very high affiliate commission, so people were very excited they were going to make some money, and there was some vested interests in pushing it. I'm not a part of Arcand affiliate program. I ignored them for a year. I looked at one scope, and that scope is quite good. The EP5 looks promising. It comes down to whether they can control the quality or not. I'm moderately certain somewhere halfway through the existence it did change to a different OEM. So we'll see what happens.
Well, they own their own facility. That's the thing.
Nobody owns a facility in China because a foreign company cannot own a facility in China.
Well, I guess they have a JV partner in there, and one of the owners, one of the
Correct.
partners of Arkin here, he looked Asian, and he has an Asian sounding name.
Okay.
Wow,
it
not
may
racist.
very well
It's a
be
JV.
true.
They'd
But
have to be a
I
JV.
would not bet on it. So what usually happens when somebody tells you they own their own factory, that means they basically have control of one production line. It's just for them. That's usually what that means. It's possible they own their own factory. I'll believe it when I see it because every other brand that makes optics in China
I
says
think
that, and they don't.
So I think this would be actually a really good discussion that I would love to have you on there. But I have, so if you watch my video with Michael Riley, we answered that specific question, and it was answered like that. And it specifically is like, no, we do not use another OEM. It's our own facility that we control in China.
Right. Facility control in China. So you can go to a larger factory, you can take control over a production line. It can be just yours. The general disclaimer, I don't think it makes a difference.
Yep.
If they can enforce the QC, I don't care if they own the factory, lease a factory, or blow it up every 2 months and build a new one. Couldn't care less. As long as the product stands on its own merit, right? And the stuff I've seen from them lately is getting better, right? So that's basically Arkin. All right, Mr.
It's just kind of things like I am going to be on her ass about the QC side, especially since after what kind of really got me. So one of your friends of a company, I got an email from him basically telling me that I'm an Arkin shill, which I think out of anybody who knows me knows I've been pretty damn harsh on Arkin from the start. So it was like a little weird.
You have to be more selective. You can't, because you're a shill for everything, right? So you have to be like, pick one, and then you can say you're not a shill for others, right? So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
but anyhow, no, you've been fairly hard on Arkin. I wouldn't call you an Arkin.
I've been fair.
I mean, you're a Ruger shill, of course, and whatever 1911 issue.
Oh yeah, that's Mr. Ruger right there.
Well, I'm sorry. 1911 is God's gift to Earth. I mean, I think 1911 is it. All right.
I can't disagree with you.
You must be really good at malfunction clearance. Anyhow,
my 1911s function just fine.
Allegedly.
I can show you, but that'll get your live stream closed down. I'll show you my match guns.
Okay, I'm gonna just boot you from a live stream if I see you reaching. If I see your hand outside of the video frame, I'm booting you off of the live stream.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, Mr. Sigurdsson is trying to get my take on the Razor Gen 3 and whether it's better than a 7-35 attacker. Yeah, I believe it is better, but I will probably need to buy an attacker and do side by side.
Do you think they'll let you buy one?
They won't let me borrow one. There is also another problem, right? So I'll tell you a story about Will's favorite company, Zero Compromise Optics, right? So they were not happy about one of my videos. They decided to yell at me and shot. I'm okay with it. Every time I go to shop, a few people yell at me. It's perfectly fine. So this time it was only one. Usually it's 3 or 4. So I'm not sure. Maybe I need to get meaner again. I don't care about that. But there is something they said at the end of it. When they were done yelling at me, the phrase that came up was that, well, we've enjoyed a good relationship, and if you want to continue that relationship, it didn't end this, right? So what this means is that I will never request another scope from Zcomp. If I want to test one, I have to buy it from Will or buy it, sell it, something like that. I am very happy to have people send me scopes and look at them, send them back, and all sorts of stuff. That's what I've been doing with Zcomp. The basic problem is that if there is an anticipation of a particular conclusion when they loan me a scope, then I can no longer borrow one from them. I cannot work with it, right? With Nightforce, I have not really had a particularly fruitful relationship over the years. And now, for example, if I were to ask for a scope from Nightforce and they would loan me one, I don't know what to make out of it because they've been so hostile over the years. So I can't trust that. It's going to be so that maybe that's if they decide they want to establish, it's going to be some cherry-picked shit. I have no idea. I assume they wouldn't do it, but I don't know, right? So there are some companies from whom I would not borrow a scope.
Didn't you say at when we met with them? I think they were at Comp Expo when we were there, and you said like you went up to them and they didn't even remember who you are. So like, I mean, it seems like a larger company like that. I mean, their turnover is just so big, they literally might not know who you are.
That's entirely, yeah, that is true. But the person who runs the marketing does. Okay. The people at the booth probably did not know, and if they did, they didn't show anything. They were perfectly cordial, and I generally like attacker scopes. The problem is that once this relation has soured, I don't know if I can trust that it's not a cherry-picked product, right?
Yeah. And that is a legit issue within like a lot of the demo products. It's like, so, I mean, for example, I got a scope from Primary Arms, and there is a 2-page checklist that it was checked over by the head of engineering before it was sent to me. So it's like, well, it's all fine and dandy. I'm glad that somebody opened up the box and inspected all of these by hand. But now it's like, well, how do we know it's a true representation of the product that somebody else would get? And I know that's one of the concerns you had with the Arkin scope that was sent to you.
Yeah, I always have this concern, and if a scope ends up on my recommendation list, that means that I've seen more than one, right? So if I think something is good enough, I will go out of my way and borrow them from people, buy them, sell them. I do a lot of stuff with scopes. I will not recommend scope if I've only seen one. Right? But Mr. Sigurdsson, yes, I think the Razor Gen 3 was designed to be better than the Attacker, right? So, and I'm sure Night Force is not resting on their laurels and working on something else behind the scenes as well. That's how competition works. Drew, will the new element optics unit be offered in any of the Horace type reticles like H59? I sure as hell hope not, but I don't know. Why pollute a good scope with a shitty reticle? Seriously.
Or do we even have the money to pay for the licensing for the reticle?
I have the money.
That was something that I was going to bring up just to address this question quickly is, so you look at Element Optics and kind of one of the things that they're basing themselves on is being a more budget-friendly option. But once you have to start charging an upcharge for an H59, it kind of puts you in somewhat of a different price bracket. And so I don't know that they necessarily, I mean, I can't say they wouldn't, but I don't know that that'd be real high on their priority list, because you can make, honestly, a better reticle yourself. So I don't know why you would pay.
So Element actually has pretty good reticles, and they hang their hat on the fact that they push the OEMs to offer really, really consistently tracking turrets. That's sort of their big thing.
Yeah.
They really beat them up, and Element scopes almost invariably track, right? They may not be always the most feature-rich, whatever else, but they really want them to track, because the two guys who are behind it, they're serious competition shooters. Unlike many other companies, one of them is technically inclined. He sort of knows his shit. Another one is less technically inclined, but both of them are serious shooters. Right? So they really pay attention to some of the things that actually make
I can tell you right now, I can take my Element Optics on my 300 PRC, dial 4 mils, and hit cold bore steel. Cold bore shot hit steel at 1,000 yards with it all day long.
Yep. They really pay attention to this stuff.
Yeah, I haven't had a tracking issue or anything else with an Element scope yet.
Okay, so here's a question for you, Derek. If you're going to go shoot 1,000 yards, would you rather take the Titan, or would you rather get that amazing, awesome Blackhound scope?
I've done 1,000 yards with the Blackhound too. I got the longest shot on record for the company with their Genesis line. Honestly, I'm kind of excited to see what the new Blackhound Emerge is going to be.
So, since we brought this up, Blackhound is actually one of the companies I was very pleasantly surprised by when I was at SHOT Show. Were you there when we went to Blackhound or not? No, you weren't. So, whatever asshole was trying to schmooze me 2 years ago wasn't there. They had new people.
Yes.
They were trying to bullshit me. Nobody at Blackhound booth tried to explain to me how optics work. That was nice. I always enjoy those. They have a couple new product lines. They're kind of doing a little bit along the lines of what Athlon did. Top line is going to be Japanese. They look to be pretty decent. Reticles are normal. True levels of Chinese scopes, higher end and mid-range. Some of the stuff they had on show was fairly early pre-production prototype stuff, and they did not try to tell me that it's the best thing since sliced bread. I basically look at this and go, okay, this one is not ready for prime time yet. This is almost ready. Direct, honest communication, no bullshitting, and they saying the right things. So I'm pretty
I think
I'm
that
kind
was
of
just
doing a
you.
180 on Blackhound. I thought there were a bunch of dicks 2 years ago.
I
But
think that's just you because so I think it was somebody else, Dark. I'm not sure if it was no. I think it was Bullets for Bucks or Alex at Affordable Optics. He went there and like yeah, so like they didn't even want to tell him like so Blackhound has been one of those like oh we have our own we have our own production facility in China and we do everything in house and like like he looked at the high end scopes and he's like well who's the OEM? He's like well what do you mean who's the OEM? He's like who's making those scopes for you?
Japan
And
Optics Limited makes them.
yeah. And like at first, like they didn't want to admit that it was somebody else who was making it for them.
Okay, so maybe there was some other person in the booth earlier during
Yeah.
the show, and they fired him on day 2. I don't know.
Yeah.
The people I talked to were pretty capable.
Well, speaking of like $2,000 freaking Blackout scopes, then there's the Integrix. There you had JB had a question on any thoughts on the Integrix optics, which was interesting.
Well, I didn't get a chance to see them because
Okay.
by the time I so my whole career with optics started with a Leaper scope that I bought that fell apart on me. I took it apart, and that's how I started looking into gun optics. And since then, I don't have ever visited their booth at SHOT Show. I should have this year, but by the time I figured out I've got something new, I was already in another part of the show, and I didn't go back. So now, Mr. Slev Guns, go ahead.
So actually, I did look after seeing those. I did look at the Integrix scopes, which were actually quite interesting. It's like I mean, it was definitely the nicest UTG or Leapers product that I saw. So they only had there was the 1 to 8 or 1 to 10 or something like that. Then they had a 3 to 12, and it was like a 3 to 18. And so 2 out of the 3 I mean, image quality was actually pretty good. I didn't have any issues with it. Reticles were a little bit still more towards the tactical side, the tactical AR market.
Tactical or tactical? I mean, that's not the same.
Tactical.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, especially that 3 to 18. That was kind of disappointing.
But the biggest
did you
thing
see
though,
the
was like,
Integrix thing, or did you also miss it?
I did not see it.
You did not. Okay.
So it's the biggest thing though is like the QC for an $1,800 scope is like the fit and finish on it. Just like so, let me rephrase that. Not QC. The fit and finish on it for an $1,800 scope, it just didn't feel like it. I mean, I wouldn't even pay $1,000 for these. I mean, it's like the magnification. Like the turrets were okay, they weren't great. The magnification adjustment ring on 2 out of the 3 scopes felt very gritty. It was like soft and gritty. The other one, the 3 to 18, felt okay, but I mean, I wouldn't pay that much money for it. But hey, it's nice that they're using, was it Japanese and German glass and made in Taiwan.
A bunch of nonsense. Yeah. So, in other words, you're trying to tell me that Will is not going to give up his DCO for the new Integrix scope?
Oh, absolutely not. Unless Leaper sponsors him, which is totally possible.
Okay. So I get this question once in a blue moon. What do you think of Rudolph? And it happens.
Yeah. Can I make one more comment? So going back to the Blackhound thing and the Leapers, we're having this discussion with our big group while we were at SHOT Show. So here's the thing: even though like it doesn't matter who the OEM is, and it could be the best damn scope, the fact of the matter is because it still has Leapers on the name, and because it still has Blackhound on the name. So like that Blackhound scope is $2,000 and up. There's got to be something wrong with your head to buy $2,000 Blackhound scope versus a $2,000 Burris or Leupold or Night Force, because when you inevitably get tired of that scope and you go try to resell it, who's gonna pay anywhere close?
Okay, yeah, I see your argument. I will counter it with one very, very simple thing, because 15 years ago, if you told anybody they'll pay $3,000 or $2,000 for a Vortex scope, they would call you mental and call it paramedics, because you need to be committed.
Yeah.
Brands, through good service, good products, and good support, can build up their brand equity. It just takes time to work.
But for every Vortex, how many failed?
Quite a few, but it doesn't mean others can't succeed, right? And I'm not going to be out here discouraging brands from trying to do better things.
No, I mean,
I will be the first to reap them a new one when they don't do better things. It's a different ballgame.
But here's the thing, though. Would you, as an optics person, recommend somebody who's saving money to buy a $2,000 scope? Would you honestly recommend that they go with a brand who's never produced a scope anywhere near in that price point or budget? and who's had turnover left and right, like from the pure resale perspective.
So I've had this discussion multiple times
Yeah.
with different brands over the years, and it's a case by case basis. It depends on what I think of the company and people behind it. Now, once again, I'll give you an example. I'm very bullish on Element Optics
Yes.
for several reasons. Partly because Mr. King Yu who agrees with me about Bushmaster, Element Scopes track, right? The first Element Scope I got my hands on was the Nexus. It was $1,500. Spent a little time with it, looked a couple more, talked to the people behind the company, and added it to my list of freaking recommendations.
Yeah.
Because there are cases like this. Will I do this with Blackhound? I don't know yet because I don't know them well enough.
Yeah.
But if nobody ever
I
takes
have
a
one
chance on
coming.
a new company, they never become big companies, right?
See, I
True.
do have one of the new Blackhounds coming when they release the Emerge line in May.
Yeah. I'm supposed to take a look at one towards summer if I have the bandwidth, but we'll see. Here's an interesting. I don't know who Mr. King Yu who is, and I don't think I've seen his name here before. He says, "I don't care how the turrets feel. Element Scopes track." It is nice to see people saying Element Scopes track because that is what Element guys have been trying to say. Okay, if they don't. As their volumes go bigger, if they manage to keep this reputation up, they will do well. Okay.
Oh, for sure. I mean, very QC. I have 5 Element Scopes? 4?
Mhm.
4.
4. I have 4 Element Scopes, and they all been tracking just fine. QC on them is terrific. All of that. Ooh.
And that is worth a lot.
Oh yeah.
Right. And once again, so one of the big things for me is people behind the company, right? Warren Buffett once famously said that he invests in good companies that have good management teams, right?
Well, Blackhound ain't it. Sorry. Well, maybe now with the new people.
I don't know enough about Blackhound to have an opinion, right? But I know enough about Element to be bullish on them.
Yeah.
And I will learn enough about Blackhound before I recommend them. So real quick thing. Yeah. So the question that Will, have you ever shot any of the Rudolph scopes?
I don't believe I've shot any of their scopes.
I didn't say shot with. Have you ever shot one? Because I wanted to a few times.
No, I've never used it as a target before.
I've considered it.
Okay.
But that's one of the companies I will not touch with a 10-foot pole.
Why?
It may be basically old history. Yeah, so when they just started coming into America, they asked me to look at a couple. I looked at them and gave them my honest feedback before publishing anything. The response I get to my honest feedback made me want to send a psychiatrist in their direction. I sent the scopes back to them and completely ignored their existence since. I thought that the guy I talked to, he wasn't just bipolar. He redefined bipolar, right? And in the gun world, you run into a lot of interesting characters.
This is true.
Yeah, I've seen in a lot of optics companies have yelled at me over the years. I've never seen anything like that.
Oh wow!
So what do I think of Rudolph Optics? I don't think of Rudolph Optics.
Alex has played with them. I've played with one of them. It was okay. Image quality was pretty good, but I wasn't too impressed with it for the money. And I tried emailing them, and I haven't heard much from. I haven't gotten a response back, so I was surprised we're still there.
Yeah, if I didn't get a response back, that would have been good. Anyhow,
which new burrs?
The world is life is short. Don't deal with assholes. Don't need to. Need to hear about the new burrs. There are a couple of new burrs, right?
I saw the XTR Pro at the MDT booth.
Did you see that from Will?
Yes, I actually saw that on a few of the team shooters match rifles in competition before the show. So I'd seen the XTR3 Pro.
It's not XTR3, it's just XTR Pro.
Or the XTR Pro, yeah.
Wait, did you see it in August, back when we saw it?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Okay.
But I've actually seen it in matches and
nice.
Get used and things like that. I think it's cool. I don't think it's bad at all personally. I don't know. I think people are still kind of associating Burris with more budget-friendly optics than more of a tier one. So they kind of got to break that stigma, because I think this is going to be their first real competitive entry into that segment of it. Or I wouldn't say, well, it depends on what your tier one is. If
Maybe.
tier one is Tangent, Z-Comp, Schmidt, Bender, it's not quite up there yet. But if your tier one is like a Loophole Mark V ish, I guess that maybe be tier two, but I think it can do well.
Derek?
Yeah, I played around with it over at the MDT booth with the new XTR Pro. I liked it. I like the reticle. I like the design of the scope. I really didn't get to see like anything like long range with it to tell you how I felt about the glass, but everything about it I like so far, and I think it's a good price point.
Mr. Slevguns, did you get a chance to see one recently or only at Comp Expo?
Both. So, you weren't there, but I was while waiting for my tourism meeting. I was hanging out in the Burris / Beretta Lounge, and Sky and Jordan were like, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, "Wait, I didn't know you guys had a booth here." He's like, "So we were just hanging out there." That's actually I was hanging out with them while Sky was supposed to meet with you.
I see.
And you stood him up.
I didn't stand him up. He said his phone died, went to charge it. When he came back, saw me talking with someone, and then was too shy and left.
Yeah, no. So I played with it again. I mean, it wasn't as good of a demo as basically when we got to play with it at Comp Expo. I guess you guys already know my fault. I love the reticle. It's by far my favorite reticle to use. I love the SCR2, and I think this was just a slight modification of that reticle. I think it's going to be really good for the money, because what's the price point supposed to be on there? Like the same 20.
Well, so MSRP
2,000
on it is going to be like about 26, but I don't know if
street price in a $2,000 range.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. It will. I think you hit the nail on the head, and kind of discussing this with Jordan from the marketing side. I mean, we spent about half an hour on it. It is basically one of their talking points that they're having within the company. I do think that in some degrees being part of the Beretta group is both helpful and also makes a lot more red tape to make their jobs more difficult than it needs to be. But I like those guys. I like the people at the company, at least the people who are there now. I like everything about the scope, and it works fine. But actually, I also got to play with a demo of something we're playing with for Steiner, and that thing was super cool. I think that's going to be ELR for dummies, kind of. Well, ELR for dummies, but for people who still want to dial their own scopes. I just think the turret system on there was just like really, really, really cool. I was like, I think it's cooler than, so like my favorite turret system right now is the one in the Mark V. So kind of like how you have the zero stop detent in there. I think it's just cool. It works well. But the thing that was on this scope was even better. But no, I'm on a wait list for the XTR Pro, so I'm looking forward to getting one soon.
Okay, so with Burris, there are two things happening. XTR Pro is a new high-end scope line. It may be the one to beat at around $2,000, honestly. Very possibly. I'm supposed to get one within the next couple of days, so we'll see. The XTR3 production is moving to the Philippines and becoming illuminated. But the same, everything just assembly in the Philippines. So that should help them with price, and XTR Pro is going to continue to be made in the US. I think Burris is doing a lot of things right, and they generally have a good team. They're good people. I'm cautiously hopeful. What's really helping Burris is that Vortex did a price hike. So I think it's going to help Burris.
Now, one thing that he can't say, but I can, and it kind of made like all the world of difference to me, is when I saw Ilya interact with the company at Burris, they legit wanted his expertise. And even with me, it's like, I mean, obviously I'm not anywhere near as knowledgeable about the in-depth of the optics, but I mean, I do look at it from the user perspective and from the buyer perspective. I'm always amazed with the company, with the people at Burris, that they're they're down to earth and they legit want to hear your opinions and your thoughts instead of just basically shutting you out and kind of like, we know better than you and you're wrong, which we kind of see with some of the optics companies when you try to give them a suggestion,
Yeah, it happens.
or even gun companies.
No, bears are good people. They're legitimately good people. They're legitimately trying to do a good thing. Yeah, and I think this time around they legitimately have a good thing in their hands.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And I love that freaking reticle. I mean, like I can't speak highly. It's by far my favorite reticle.
Okay, so it's also on Burris. Yes, I plan to do a comparison of the new XTR3 illuminated against the Vortex Razor HDL-HT. Not entirely apples to apples, but close enough.
Now that it has
I'll
illumination, Ilya can actually look at it because he refuses to look at any scope that doesn't have illumination.
That is not
That's
specifically true, but I refuse to look at the XTR3 without illumination. Pretty much. Okay, that's Drew. I really like Burris darker glass, but I like the Vortex service, and I like the Element Optics look. I'm so lost on what to do. I'm so lost on what you mean. What do you mean by darker glass?
Yeah, I don't know.
Are you talking about like more vivid contrast on there? So I mean, like it definitely is a little bit.
Oh, I remember. Drew has the XTR2, and the way they did the color balance, it looks a little darker. But okay. So that I think was what we just addressed. XTR Pro. I'm very, very hopeful about that scope, but need to see. Let's see.
While you're looking for a question, what I'm really tempted to see is not just how the XTR Pro is going to compete with the Leupold Mark V, which I think is the standard at that 2,000 or so price point,
Yes.
but also if it can provide enough value over your premium, your Japanese brand. So basically your Tractoric, your Athlon Cronus, a couple others. Well, the new ones from Blackhound, the new Burris. I'm sorry, the new Bushnell. What's that one? I think you had a question on it. It was that new Elite.
The
DMR 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, that's one I really liked at Shot Shot. Was that new DMR reticle?
Okay. Interesting question, Mr. King. Who as I'm getting older, I can't really use red dots anymore thanks to astigmatism. I was starting to follow DLO and migrating to 1x prisms. A lot of us should, will not for a long time now, but I'm kind of getting there. I can use red dots just fine, not at distance. So I'm using a lot of prismatics. We need to talk a little bit about Swamp Fox. We'll get there in a moment. Mr. Sigurdsson is still trying to figure out this. I'm guessing that this was posted before. Yeah, we're kind of very delayed on going through the comments. I think I already replied to this. I think Vortex designed this to be better than Attacker. So now Night Force is going to have to do something else that's better. Okay. Let's see. Looking at. Yeah, so. Yeah. Don't understand the crazy around Arkan. It was a very artificially whipped up thing. So, and this, what Ball Infinity is saying, the Arkan shilling is gonna. The basic. So what happens with Arkan? And I'm gonna make a little bit of a prediction. On the lower end, because the price is good, a lot of people bought them, have been buying them, and will keep on buying them. But the way they rolled out and the consistent shilling, if they decide to step up market more, and it sounds like they want to, they will have some serious hurdles before serious shooters take them seriously. They're
But here's
just
the thing,
because of the reputation.
at the price point that they're competing, name another scope that's going to give you all of those features at that price point.
It's correct, but as you go higher up, it
Well,
also
yes,
has to have
yes.
fundamentals, and they have
But
to
I don't think
convince people.
I don't think they need to go higher up yet. I mean, like they're having.
Not yet, but everybody does.
Yes.
EP5 is higher up than what they had before, right? So
No, it's not. EP5 just it's
EP5
replacing.
replaces EP4.
Yes.
All optics companies do the same thing. Production costs go up. They have to do more and charge
Same.
more and increase their profit.
EP5 is the same price. EP5, if not mistaken, is actually cheaper than the EP4 was, because that used to be a $599. We're down to $549 on those.
Let's see. I'm looking through the comments.
You're not even going to talk about Val data.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about Valdata. So we just learned that Derek was not in the Air Force. Okay. Oh, Mr. Travis Fox is here from Ultimate Reloader.
Yeah, he just
Hi,
he said a few
Travis.
minutes before dinner. I think he's gone, but Travis, thank you for stopping by.
he said he wants to come on next time you do a live stream.
He's always welcome to. He has my cell number. Let's see.
That was really cool to meet Travis over at SHOT.
Okay.
Well, at the NRL meetup that night.
Oh yeah, I like Travis. I like the Ultimate Reloader guys. Good guys, smart guys. So Mr. Iceland has left us. Right. If you have more questions, you know where to find me. Let's see. What else we got? Okay, Apex Optics. Let's see. Starting at the top, Mr. Will.
Is that the Canadian company or no?
Yes.
Okay.
I have not seen any of the Apex products.
You spent like 45 minutes at the MDT booth. They had one there, and you saw it because I showed it too.
At the MDT booth?
Yes.
Which rifle was that one on?
I don't remember which rifle. I know which scope.
Ilya, let's just skip all of this. Just tell us what you think, because he doesn't remember and it wasn't memorable enough for it. I didn't look at it, and all I know it's that's made by one of the same Japanese OEMs.
Yes.
And Derek is going to tell you I don't know either, so just tell us the answer.
All right. So the answer is the Dark Lord is always right, and if you think that I'm wrong, see rule number one. But
Damn it, I can't even ban him. It's off my live stream.
No, so it is another Japan Optics Limited product. The guy behind it, his name is Vanya. I did a short video with him. I need to find it and publish it.
Wait, he says he's Vanya?
Vanya, yes. He's
Russian?
originally family is from Bosnia, I think.
Okay.
But he's Canadian. I'm pretty sure he was either born in Canada or came there when he was very little. Didn't have an accent.
Faker.
But faker from a man in a red Adidas suit. Okay.
Hey, at least I was born in the Soviet Union.
Yes.
And I speak the languages.
Yeah, and you are as far removed from a Gopnik as Vanya is from freaking Antarctica. But anyhow, the guy is a shooter, right? And although the scope comes from the same OEM, it's probably not very different from other scopes from the same OEM. The reticle is his, and the guy is a shooter, and I always pay attention to that.
Cool.
His day job, he's an engineer, he's a smart guy, and he does PRS-type shooting. He has good relationships with some other Canadian companies that do this, which is why his scope was an MDT booth and a few other options.
Nice.
Always pay attention to this kind of stuff. Is the scope by itself exceptional in any way? No, but he was paying, he just had a couple of prototypes. We'll see what the production ones look like. I like competition, and the guy knows what features to ask for and what to push for.
So was it any different from the others from the same OEM line, with the exception of the reticle?
Based on what I can see, it wasn't clear. The eyepiece may be slightly modified, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
So Japan Optics Limited doesn't like to make significant modifications beyond branding and reticles to their scopes, but they have a new CEO who came from Light Optics Works, if I remember correctly. So maybe they'll be doing more modifications. Maybe they will end up changing how they do business.
So is that one the same as the new Blackhound and Bushnell,
right
or is
on
it the same one as
Blackhound will have
or
a
is it the same one as the Tract and Athlon?
Blackhound and Right On.
Okay.
Athlon and Tract are different.
Yep.
So, is it going to set your world afire and all that? Probably not. Is it worth watching? Yeah, because once again, I look at people. He's a competent guy. He can do things if he chooses. So
I kind of look at it from the perspective. I mean, if he's a PRS shooter, he can sell it to his own crowd. It's going to be, and I'm sure he'll be successful with that. It's going to be interesting to see whether that transgresses that and goes into the bigger it goes outside of the PRS competition world.
We don't know. It's very new. Time will tell.
Yeah.
But once again, that's why I go to SHOT Show and meet with people, because I'm looking at people.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you just saw the way Will talks online, you go, covered noob, who's going to talk to this guy? Then I met him, and it seems like he's a shooter.
Yeah. Well, I know Alex at Affordable Optics and another one of our friends, Pursuit of Accuracy, just got those scopes in.
Mhm.
And actually, that's when we brought you in on that chat, because he mentioned that image quality wasn't all that, or at least it was either image quality or sharpness. One thing was there, one thing was not there. And he was comparing it with a Toric, and he's like, it wasn't in that same place. That's why we asked you if it was the same OEM or not.
It's not the same OEM historic. It's a different OEM. So Travis actually asked a good question. Thoughts on the Ringer scopes? That are sent out for testing. We kind of thought about it. If you have the money and the bandwidth, it's better to buy them than have them sent. So there are two downsides to this. One is that some scopes I want to get early and I need to have them for a long time. And if you go through regular retail channel, it may take a little time for me to get my hands on one. But if I am recommending something, I always check multiple copies. Also, when people send me Ringer, it does not work out well. Like, so with the Vortex Razor Gen 3 or the 6-36, I actually talked to the Vortex guy who sent it to me. I said, "Did you put it in the MTF machine?" He goes, "Yeah." "How did it stack?" He goes, "Exactly meat pack of the ones I was seeing." Meat pack, I'm looking for that. They have better ones over there. I've seen them when I visited them, right? But the scope I want to spend significant amount of time with, I want it to be meat pack in terms of performance. Some companies send out Ringers, some don't. I always check before I recommend it, but if I'm going to be testing something long term, I want to see that scope early if I can. All right. That's very interesting. So there was a discussion in the chat about Chinese OEMs. And Mr. Kingu, who is in the US, I believe, but ethnically Chinese, it seems to have some insight. And he basically says that all the bigger manufacturers are being taken over by the government, and smaller guys are not doing well. This is the first time I hear of that, so I'm going to dig into this a little. But that's an interesting data point. Don't know.
Well, I think basically that might have come up from the fact that in China you can't an foreign entity or foreign person cannot own in China, so everything has to be a JV.
Correct. Yes, but it doesn't mean it's controlled by
Correct.
the CCP, right? So we don't know. But if the CCP, let's say, is speaking to crack down on optics world, that would be interesting. I haven't heard that, but we'll see. Let's see. We had a question on Integrix. I think we've covered that. I knew I liked Travis for a reason. Just say no to Horace. I agree. I mean, that's I happen to dislike the Horace Reticles, but we can't argue with their success. They somehow managed to convince a lot of people that all that nonsense works.
You send it to the military, and you have the tactical Timmy sell it to the world.
There you go. I do like the way these people think. Friends don't let friends buy scopes with Horace Reticles. All right, let's see.
For a little bit of time, I really wanted to get a Horace Reticle, and then I basically realized this is.
And then you got one and learned your lesson.
No, I didn't get one and learn my lesson. I just looked at others, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this would be a little too much. I kind of feel that way about some of the primary arms reticles. It's just like there's too much barf in there.
Okay. So Travis, laughing at someone explaining optics to DLO, love to see that. Happens every time. So I'm sort of an arrogant jackass, but I always give them a little bit of time to stop talking. Right? But what usually happens with sales guys, they start explaining optics, but because they don't understand what they're talking about, they just bury themselves, and then they make them feel bad about themselves. And I should not enjoy it, but guilty pleasures. How interesting. So, Mr. GTM, I know they aren't directly competitive, but the folks at Zerotech seem like high-quality, honest individuals. They have been very receptive to my feedback. I've seen the name of the brand. I've never seen any Zerotech products.
They've done a bunch of Instagram marketing.
Yeah.
Alex from Affordable Optics had one.
Okay.
From what I remember, it was decent, but it wasn't crazy.
Interesting. So yeah, I know nothing about this. We'll see.
Zerotech, that's the company out of Australia, right?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Just Google Zerotech, and then on your phone and everywhere you go, you're going to see a bunch of Zerotech ads, and that's how you'll remember them.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Cyclops Joe is here. He's confirming that Black Hound has a completely new crew. Okay, good. That seems that way to me. Let's see.
I could have confirmed that before Shot Show.
Yeah. Okay. We lost Iceland. He went to sleep. That's good. Sleep is important, as I'm learning. I'm betting that if I try sleeping occasionally, I won't get sick as much. We'll see if that works.
There's some really good questions towards the end, so if browse through and then just go down.
Okay. We lost Ultimate Reloader. Okay, Drew. A year ago, we covered different types of how reticles are installed, made, etc. Which is more precise, which is more durable. If properly made, the durability is a wash. In terms of precision, diffractive reticle, it's type of a glass etching. That's probably the most precise, but they're all precise enough. That's an interesting question. Not from Shot Show. So Primary Arms has a new compact PLX. What concerns do you have that would make it not be Night Force NX8 killer? I'm hoping for either capped or locking turrets. So this is the scope that you're talking about. It does have covered turrets. The turrets are actually quite good. I took one apart, and the turret is a proprietary PA design. It's not like a regular Light Optics Works turret. So what would make it a Night Force killer? It has a much better eyepiece. It's much easier to get behind, which is one of the problems with NX8. What would not make it a Night Force killer? It does not have that ultra bright reticle illumination. A reticle works very well. It's very visible. It is not a nuclear bright dot. So I'll spend some more time with it and see where the compromise lies.
Now, Ilya, I got a question for you.
Absolutely.
Have you ever worked with a company called German Precision Optics?
Yes, I'm familiar with them.
What's your take on them?
So I'm pretty friendly with the guy that sort of runs their worldwide marketing. He's out of Germany, Czech Republic. It's a very unfortunate name. They should never spell out German Precision Optics. I should just say GPO, because they don't really do anything in Germany other than QC. So they basically put together some electronics, send them off to China. Well, now like all the spectroscopes are made in China. They do some QC in Germany, but they're pretty good scopes. The people there are some former Zeiss, former Myope people, primarily former Zeiss people who studied it. They're pretty pushing into the hunting market. I kind of had a nice. I sort of gave up on them because they hired this marketing person who decided to ignore me. I tried twice and then never contacted them again. Like I said, I don't like being ignored. It hurts my vanity or something. I don't know. But
the reason why I asked is I got one of their scopes in for review.
Yeah. I've looked at a few of their scopes. They seem to be well made, but they were back when they were doing them in Japan. I have not tested any of the Chinese ones, but they look to be the same OEM that used to be making Zeiss Conquest HD, so they know how to make stuff. So. They do have a new kind of a tactical oriented scope. The 4.5 27x50 has actually looked reasonable. Probably same OEM as Athlon Ares, but it's hard to say.
That's the one I have in.
Yeah, it looked like a perfectly reasonable scope. So Rick is asking if the quality of the Apex is as good as tracked. Well, it's not asking. They can give him a run. Will should try one like he did tracked. Yeah, Will should try one. But it's a different OEM, but it's in the same basic price range, so it should be broadly comparable. But we'll see. When they're ready for production, we'll
right.
need
So
cookie
I
up
would say, well, they're sending out production units already, I believe, right now.
Apex?
Yeah.
They're not.
Well, no, they said it was supposed to be ready. But I would say follow Pursuit of Accuracy channel. He does NRL 22 competitions, PRS 22, and he has both. And that's actually what we're.
I'm not contesting and sending them out. I'm contesting and sending out production units.
Yeah, apparently his was supposed to be production, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, take a look at it and ask him for feedback, but he wasn't too crazy about him. I still think it's even a little bit early to kind of compare them to Tracked. I think Tracked is a lot more established. They have more capital. I mean, they have more product lines that are out there versus somebody who's just starting brand new. But it'll be interesting. It'll be really, really interesting. It's good. It's competition.
Okay. Oh, really? That's interesting. Weird question. If I wanted to have a different form factor red dot scope designed and manufactured, who should I talk to? Well, it would be probably good to talk to some company that Oems red dot optics. If you can get a hold of them, Swamp Fox, it's sort of a kind of a house brand of a good size Chinese OEM. Talk to them. That would be a good start. Holosun doesn't like to do to OEM a whole lot. I don't know who else. There are a few out there. I would probably start with Swamp Fox, or if you're looking to partner with some company to do some weird red dot site, rather than have your own brand, you can always talk to somebody like Primary Arms. Those guys, they have really strong relationships with the OEMs, and if you can convince them your product is good, I'm sure they'll be interested.
Maybe Brownells.
Right. Yeah, I saw Will falling asleep, so we have a question for you.
I
to
did
the new
actually
Schmidt
look at
Embedded
that.
6x36.
Yeah, I did stop by the Schmidt booth.
Shocking,
So I like
I know.
it. The only thing I don't like is the price point because it's a decent bit over $4,000. So now you're playing in the tangent territory, clear and away. But I will say that I really like the. So I'm not a fan of like the fine reticles, like the P4 fine. Only they're perfectly serviceable, but I like the Grid 2 or GR2 ID. That's probably my preference, but obviously I'm looking at it from a competition perspective. I think the new turrets are really, really nice. The DT2, I believe, that's what they're called. They're like a little bit lower profile, and they have the switch on the side so you can lock, unlock, and then turn off the MTC feature. I really like that. I don't know what the street price on these is going to be, so I'm hoping that it comes in like.
So just so the DT2 turrets is on this one.
Okay, yeah. So those are the turrets that I really, really like from Schmidt.
Just for the record, Derek, you should get one of these tripods once.
I'm sorry. Are you holding a Honda Civic in your hand, or is that more of a Lexus?
It's not that bad. It's maybe 20 grand, something like that.
Okay, so like a Honda Accord, right in the middle.
Yeah,
got it. Yeah. So, but I mean,
I use
Schmidt
it as a footstool, but yes.
They've always done amazing glass, amazing quality. They still parallax. The 6-36 still parallax is really, really low. I think it was like 25 meters or something like that. So perfectly suitable for a rimfire. I'm really curious about what the actual street price is going to be because I believe MSRP on those is going to be like 45 and change. So that's a tall order.
It is. Did you guys look at them?
They didn't. I wasn't able to go over there. I had plans to, but I wasn't able to.
Pretty much this SHOT Show, every single one of my meetings, I had every 30 minutes scheduled out. So I only had, I think, in total about an hour for the entire week just to go browse the show.
Yeah, that's understandable. So I did stop by and take a look. It looked promising, I gotta say. A lot of the stuff, like Schmidt has been doing lately, has been kind of done intelligently. I've been pretty rough on them over the years, but Subtle small changes. The DT2 plus turret that Will was talking about, that is right now probably my favorite locking turret on the market. I have it on this 520 Ultra Short I've been messing with. It's really nice. And I thought it would get clogged with sand. It didn't. The 6 to 36 is kind of interesting. I'm always surprised by the choice of the magnification range. Why did they make it the same as all the Japanese scopes coming out now? Although it's kind of a pretty good range for precision type scope. The new eyepiece looked very good. The P5F reticle was actually pretty capable, although I do like the grid reticle a little bit more. It's more suitable for the way I shoot. They said they'll have production scopes, toward the third quarter of the year, something like that. So probably later. With COVID, everything is slow. I plan to test one. I want to see it next to Tangent and the new Vortex and the Night Force. Schmidt does not make crap. I mean, they created this category that Z-Comp and Tangent are competing in, right? And they want to play. They should. I like competition. They, if there is a company out there that is capable of really give Z-Comp and Tangent a real run for their money, I mean, it's Schmidt, right? You can't say that they don't know how to build scopes.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to be a little bit more arrogant than they should have been in the past. Many scope companies kind of go through this. Their 5 to 25, the original 5 to 25 was so successful that they could kind of rest on their laurels a little bit. And some subsequent designs were very good, but they became really, really expensive. And the competition, it was not snoozing. And competition was listening to the market maybe better. The stuff I see from Schmidt more recently tells me that they are really paying attention to the market, right? Like Mr. Slavgas, remember how you mentioned when we went and saw him talk to the guys at Burris, they really want to know. They're really paying attention. I'm getting that from this guy who runs marketing at Schmidt. He's a good shooter himself. He's a good guy. He asks questions, listens to questions, wants market feedback. It's kind of a big deal for a company with a name as storied as Schmidt. It's kind of a nice thing to see, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. I mean, even like looking back at the car world, I mean, you had BMW, you had Mercedes. It's like they created the category and then like, well, we know better than you. Like, I guess you can even use like in the pistol world, you can still use HK. And it's like, even same thing with Glock until some of those patents started expiring or like some other people started innovating. And it's like, hey, yeah, you actually have real competition now and you can't have that better than you mentality. And well, I guess except HK, but they kind of doing it in the joking manner now. So it kind of works for them. But I mean, look, there are people who are going to be willing to pounce. And I guess kind of like the difference. So like coming more from the firearms world rather than optics, it's interesting. Like I talk to a lot of the biggest gun companies in the world, and they will never say anything bad against anybody else. They're always really senatorial, if that's going to be a good way of putting it. But they also know that they have to keep on innovating and they have to be receptive and listen to the public. When you get into the optics and specifically the suppressor world, it's like, so I mean, optics, they don't talk harshly against others in public, but behind closed doors they absolutely do. And I guess the worst of it is suppressor world. They'll talk shit about for competition openly to their face and to the customers. So it kind of like on one hand, it's like I'm kind of glad that like when somebody who thinks highly of themselves, they get taken down a level or two. But I mean, that's why, look, it's like kind of going back to the Black Hounds and the Arkans and all of those. It's like what those newer companies are doing is they're taking those features that you're used to paying a lot more and then bringing it down to a much more manageable level. And they're forcing companies to essentially stay honest with others. But I mean, listen, 10 years ago, if somebody was getting into PRS on a budget, well, there was no PRS at that point, but if somebody's getting into longer range shooting on a budget and you tell them, hey, my budget's $500 and I want to get a front focal plane rifle scope, you tell me like, hey, you need to double up your budget to $1,000 if you want to get anything. But now you have those options. And I would say probably, and you would know this better than me, but like kind of like what the Leupold Mark V, I feel, did in that $2,000 price category and what the Japanese OEMs are doing now in that 1,000 to 1,500, it's like, I mean, I don't think anybody needs to spend more than $1,500 to get a really good scope that's not going to hold them back.
Yeah.
And the level of diminishing returns past that, I mean, it's literally just to kind of like entertain us, but the vast majority of the world, you don't need to. And it's because of competition. It's because companies are willing to kind of go out there and take those chances.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I look at it as, especially with new shooters, you know, that are always saying, oh, well, like I always tell people, yes, spend what you can, you know, don't go into debt over the sport. But at the same time, you don't need to buy a $4,000 tangent to be competitive. Is it going to feel better? You know, is it going to look better? Sure, to a certain degree. But again, I look at it as anything past $2,000 price point, the diminishing returns get exponentially smaller every $100 or $200 you spend. So new shooters, always tell them, get the best bang for your buck. And for a long time, and I don't know that that's not going to change very soon with a lot of these new companies, but I always told people the best bang for the buck is a used Gen 2 Razor for competition. I mean, the fact that you could find those for, I saw some for $1,500. I mean, if you found a used one of those for $1,500, there's nothing on the planet that's going to beat that scope for $1,500. There's just not. Now, obviously, new is a little bit different, but right in that $1,500 to $2,000 as a top of the line price point for somebody, especially a mid pack or a new shooter, it's not going to hold you back at all. I'd argue that even a good $1,000 scope is not going to hold you back. You're going to miss more targets because you don't know how to build a position or do something or to call wind than the scope. I mean, realistically, as long as it tracks.
Well, I would even say even in the ELR world, I mean, look, Derek right there, he took his black count to, what was it, 2,000 or 2,400 yards or something stupid?
1,700.
Okay.
So when you say took his black count, he took it and left it there and went back, or
and shot it.
Shot
the
it.
black count of a tannerite and shot it. No, he took it like a $400
I know what you mean. I'm being
Chinesium, and like you're able to do it. And I guess my point is, like, you weren't able to do this comfortably.
Look,
10 years ago.
I've dialed the Element Helix FFP to the very end of its adjustment range and back and forth, and it did well. Right, so there is competition is a good thing. Nobody's really arguing that. Competition is different though. Like companies like Schmidt and Tangent and Zcom, they know they are fighting for a small number of customers and for diminishing returns, right? And everybody else is aspiring to do the same thing for less money. The big question always is, do I really need that $5,000 Schmidt or Tangent or Zcom? And the question for most people is no. But never forget, when is that scope better? It actually is legitimately better.
Yeah.
Whether it's worth the money, that's the question. It's not a question if it's better.
Well, the thing that I love, so I'm not a PRS guy yet. I was asked by a couple of companies, but I am coming from the USPSA world where we do spend $6,000 on the 2011, and you spend $200 per magazine and holsters and all of that stuff. It's like, and like the thing that kind of gets me a bit, and what I don't.
My money is still on wheels set up 1,200 yards away from you. You don't even notice.
Well, so like, what kind of bugs me a little bit is that the industry kind of says, well, look, it's like unless it's good enough for PRS or for King at 2 miles or whatnot, then you shouldn't buy this as an entry level shooter. It's kind of like, I mean, that's why you have a lot of this question. It's like, well, look at the percentage of the people who are actually doing gun games. As a percentage of the gun buying population, we're less than 0.1% or something ridiculous like that. And it's like I hate the equipment race. I mean, I really, really, really can't stand the equipment race. So when you have somebody with a cheaper scope or with a cheaper kit goes out there and proves, hey, you know what? It's not necessarily about the best gun. It's about actually spending that money on ammo and spending that money and actually training. That's really where you're going to see most of those gains. And I think as content creators, as influencers, and I hate that word, it's like we need to keep reminding people on that, because it's like we can talk about like features of $3,000-$4,000 scopes for hours and hours. But at the end of the day, is it really the most important part or is it the most critical part? I don't think so.
The most important critical parts are usually not the features. It's
Yeah.
how well the features that do exist work.
Yep.
But anyhow, with that having been said, really quick question on what is the best location for rings? There is no best location because it's different for different scopes. Your best bet of not damaging anything is to have rings that are really straight, that don't bind anything, and torque them to spec.
Yep. All right. On that note, before you guys go on, it's been a little bit over 2 hours. I got duties to attend to.
All right.
So
Was
thank
good
you for
to have you
having me,
here.
Will. It was a pleasure seeing you at SHOT Show. Awesome
Yep.
seeing you again here. Derek, yeah, well, I see you guys all the time, so we'll love you all. Thanks for having me on. I really, really
All
do
right.
enjoy the conversation.
So it's a good point. I had a bunch of good jokes at your expense, but I don't really want to say them in your
Okay,
face.
well, there's that
so
one
now's the
extra
time.
comment about like Ukraine, and like I don't want to go into
Yeah,
that.
I was
but
going to get into that in a moment. Yeah.
I would say so. Like I'm a Ukrainian, but I'm one of those ethnic Russian-speaking Ukrainian. The only people who want this war, it's the U.S. military complex. No one in Russia actually wants anything to do with Ukraine. It's like it's completely unpopular. It's all a bunch of crap to take your eyes off of what's happening in this damn country. But I digress. That's my take on it as a Russian-speaking Ukrainian. Thank you all.
All right. Okay, Mr. Slevguns is no longer here. So, Mr. Pew Pew Archives. I write quite explicitly about politics in Ukraine and all that, but it's on my website behind a paywall for a reason. I don't want YouTube to demonetize me. Even then, had you been able to spell my name correctly, I would have answered your question. More seriously, I do politics, but I do it on my local's website, and there is a reason for it. I'm gonna keep the YouTube thing focused on guns and optics and stuff like that. This is actually an interesting question to address. Not quite shot show, but an interesting question. So why do high-end scope makers, other than tangents, seem hesitant to switch to toolless ReZero turrets? Is there a downside to it versus set screws? I'm referring to Schmidt and Bender, Zeiss, Z-Comp, etc. The downside is that it's really hard to patent. It's really hard to do it well. Basically,
Cost.
that's it. It costs a lot of money. Tangent turrets is stupid complex. They do it really, really well. It's expensive and it's hard to do. That's basically it. It's much easier to do it with the screws. I assure you, if they were able to come up with a way to do so with minimal, without tools, that wouldn't be so expensive and complex to do it. Interestingly, so this new Vortex Razor Gen 3 turret that I have, the way they did it, I can easily think of a modification that would make it toolless, but they still chose not to do it. I suspect it has something to do with cost and production tolerances. Tangent scopes are essentially hand-built, right? So they can get away with any level of complexity they think they can get away with price. Other manufacturers seem to be reticent about it, simply because it's not impossible, it's just difficult, and there's so much stuff out there that's already been patented that it's hard to do without infringing on other people's patents. That's pretty much it. Okay, so feedback on the compact PLX. Something to be clear. It's not lack of brightness. It's not nuclear bright. It's still visible, but it's not nuclear bright, right? So it's less bright than the Night Force's diffractive reticle. How much of a role that plays, that remains to be seen. But it's not. It's still pretty bright illumination. It's not as bright as you're going to get with conventional mirrors. All right, I was waiting for this one. Razor LHT 4.5-22 is just as durable and able to hold zero as Razor Gen 2. The scope is fairly new, and the vast majority of them that I know of are holding up just fine. Mine definitely is. There is so this whole hoopla started. There's a guy on the Rockslide forum that's dropping rifles and claiming that all of these are shift zero. I think, Will, you probably saw some of the discussion.
Yep.
So I've kind of addressed it already. I don't want to dwell on it too much. The guy in question who is talking about this, he has never seen a Vortex scope that held zero, not one. And I will leave it at that. They seem to hold zero just fine. They don't seem to shift. I probably have more rounds undermine than almost anyone, but it's a sample of one, right?
Mhm.
When this whole rock collecting started, I quietly reached out to the people I know at Vortex, which includes the service people, and asked them if they had any returns due to loss of zero, etc. The returns on these are minimal so far. We'll see as the larger number of these are out there, they spend more time in the field, we'll see if the returns start rising. So far, the scope has been very robust for Vortex. The service people are not inundated with problems with this scope. So we'll see. Okay. Mr. GTM. DLO, I don't know if you remembered, but we were talking about IQ5 optics a while back, and you mentioned you were looking into them. Hard to get a hold of them. Okay, now I know who this is. Yeah, so IQ5 optics is in Dallas, and they are like a mile from my office in Dallas, from my day job. Next time I'm there, I'm going to go knock on their door and see what's up. I have not really had a chance to look at them.
Actually, really nice people.
That's what I've been told.
Videos.
But I also know that they had to change. A couple of people changed, and I think I talked to them before the personnel changed. So
Yes, they did have some personal change. I did. Me and Ryan did a couple of videos with them over at SHOT Show.
Okay, so I'm curious. One of the guys who works for me for my day job, he's chatted with them a little bit, and he says they're good guys. I'm gonna go talk. Mr. Chen, yeah, it's still on. You're not watching a replay, not yet. Tomorrow you can watch the replay, maybe later tonight. Okay, let's see what else we have. Well, I was gonna wrap up already, but there's still people in questions, so let's see if we have anything interesting. Okay. Although I'm sure it would be extremely costly, there's such a scope that has auto parallax, like a battery motor driven system electronic. Would that be a bad idea other than price? It's a bad idea because it's hard to do that in a way that is robust and not very heavy. And then there is always price. If you're willing to put up with weight and price, it's not hard to do. There are motorized lenses that do this on various military targeting systems, but that wanted in the rifle scope, probably not.
Yeah, that just seems like asking for more trouble than it's worth, honestly. In a rifle scope.
The big question, though, is what will that give you?
Right.
Right. You're basically talking about the objective lens having autofocus. Great.
Yes.
Autofocus on what? What if I'm not aiming with the center? What if I'm aiming with something in a tree? So it keeps on focusing on the center and just screwing me over, right?
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying it seems to be more trouble than it's worth. I mean, you know, for you to just reach up and kind of dial your parallax knob there, I'm not sure what advantage an autofocus would give you other than make the scope extremely more expensive, and then potentially, depending on how robust it is, maybe another point of failure to just not even be worth the effort, honestly.
That's pretty much it. And seem to have some agreement on that. I think, like I said, I think it's unnecessary complexity. Does it mean nobody should do it? No, I think somebody should try it. Maybe they can do well. I'm not convinced what I'm getting out of it, but I'm always open to new ideas. Mr. Chen, why did the 2 to 10 Viper PST gain? So it did not gain weight over quarantine. It gained weight well before quarantine. It's a completely different product line, different OEM and everything. I actually don't like the Gen 2 to 10. I think it's too heavy for what it is. If you're looking at that, just get the 3 to 15. Just a different design.
I think the 3 to 15 Gen 2 PST is probably the best out of all of them.
Out of the PST Gen 2s, yes. It is so good that I basically stopped recommending 3 to 15 type scopes until you get to like Mark 5. Because it's really good.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that's a Will question. Will, as a PRS shooter, which is a better ZCO reticle, 3 or 3X? Or is there scope you saw it shot that is the next great PRS optic?
Well, to answer the second part of your question, because that's a little simpler, I didn't see anything at SHOT that was truly revolutionary that's just going to blow the market away from a PRS perspective. You know, I played a little bit with the Gen 3 Razor. I played with the Schmidt 6 to 36. I saw the ZCO 8 to 40. I don't think I'll get an 8 to 40. It's just too long. And honestly, a 5 to 27 is enough magnification for anything we shoot in PRS. But if you shoot F class, I think the 8 to 40 could be something to look at. As far as reticle choice, honestly, so I run the 3X, which is their newest reticle. So it's the 3 without the ranging funnel at the top. I personally like that because I would never use the ranging funnel for the shooting that I do. I mean, that's why we have rangefinders. One and two, from a PRS perspective, I don't like that much unnecessary stuff above my center line, because that's where you can start to see a little bit of bullet trace or vapor trail or whatever you want to call it. You can see a little bit of that through there. So I personally go for the 3X, but I had the Impact 2 before that, and that one worked fine. But reticles, honestly, whatever makes sense to your head is gonna work for you. And I think largely, I mean, yes, there are some bad designs out there for sure, but largely, especially on the higher end scopes, most reticles are perfectly adequate. That it's not going to make a competitive difference one way or the other.
So we'll say out of Z-Comp reticles, I like the 3X the most, probably. I think none of them are designed for the way I shoot, to be fair, right? But they're good reticles, and I like the 3X. I have another question for Will. So before you do, I think I can answer this for you.
Okay.
I'm sure it's going to be the IOR.
Oh boy. I mean, that would be probably my first choice, you know, if I wanted to use it as a hammer instead of an optic. You know.
So for those of you who don't see this, I know some people listen to it. The question for Will: which one for your next match from these, if you have to pick one? Z-Comp 4 to 20, PM2 5 to 25, IOR 3 to 18 by 50, Attacker 7 to 35, Razor 4.5 to 27. Right. So I immediately said that for Will it must be the IOR.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've got better hammers from Home Depot than an IOR would be. So I would probably just use it as a target downrange with some tannerite. That'd be fun.
Okay. All right, Derek. Like, you must choose the IOR, no?
You know, I actually looked at an IOR at SHOT Show because I've actually never seen one before.
Oh, they were actually at SHOT Show?
Yeah, they were over next to. They had a small table next to Scott McCree or
I see. Yeah.
Okay.
And the one I looked at, the glass was so milky on it. I swear to God, I thought it was shooting. It was a Tasco.
Yeah. So to answer the long and short of it, honestly, any of the other ones outside of the IOR, I have legitimately shot national level matches with them. So I shot the ZCO 4 to 20. That was my first ZCO, and I actually Ilya ended up borrowing that one for the one of the big scope reviews.
Yep. Nice scope.
And I ended up shooting that 4 to 20 in, I think, 3 or 4 national level matches, and never felt held back by the lack of magnification at the top end or anything like that, because optically, honestly, it competes with the more full-size scopes very favorably. So if you need a dual purpose compact scope for whatever reason, maybe if you need to throw night vision on the front or something like that, the 4 to 20 is a great option. The 7 to 35, I've had probably 5 to 6 7 to 35s in every reticle that they ever offered, except the MOA ones. And I love the Mill XT. I always tell people the Mill XT, honestly, is probably still to this day my favorite Mill reticle for competition shooting. I just think it's really, really well done. My first high-end optic was a Razor Gen 2 4.5 to 27. I think a lot of people have that natural progression. And then I had a couple of Schmidts and never felt held back by any of them. If I had to take one of those to the next match, just out of the ones that you're saying, oh man, I would probably pick either. Now, I don't know which one I would pick. I would say the one that would be a little bit lower on the list, probably 4th on the list, would be the Razor, only because optically it's not quite up to the level of the ZCO or the Schmidt or the 7 to 35. But between those three, the 4 to 20, the 5 to 25, and the 7 to 35, I just close my eyes and give me one, honestly.
Interesting. So, Derek, which one would you pick?
You know, I don't have a lot of experience with any of them. Honestly, I just
Yeah, we'll
started
work on
getting
that.
into using the Gen 2 Razor 4.5 27 when we were at SHOT Show. And it's a good scope. Honestly, I would probably choose the Mark V Leopold if I had my choice.
Well, that's not one of the options.
Yeah, I know,
Okay.
but then I would probably go with the Razor.
Yeah. So I will
Night
say
Force
this.
Attacker I have
Yeah.
no experience with.
Yeah, so I will say this. So in terms of optomechanical quality, the best scope in this group is probably the Z comp or balance overall. If I were paying my own money, it would be Razor Gen 2, right?
That's fair.
Because in terms of bang for the buck,
Mm-hmm.
it's been around for a while. It's absolutely bulletproof. It has reasonable reticles and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, I'm not really a competition shooter, right? So, but if I were to go participate, let's say in a PRS match, or NRL match, whatever, and I had to pick one of these, I would pick the Schmidt because I really like the grid GR2 ID reticle. Because the way I shoot, I do a lot of small corrections around the center with the reticle. The wheel dials everything, right?
Yes.
For me, that reticle actually would make a difference because between Schmidt and Z Comp and Night Force, I mean, Night Force is not as good as I think as a Schmidt and Z Comp, but it's not, but it's close, right? It's it's very, very good.
Yep.
And the Razor is not quite as good as these three, but it's still good. And I've spent so much time with the Razors; it's not even funny, right? And PRS competitions are done during the day. There is significant demands of glass, but it's not like I'm shooting there at freaking dusk and all that sort of crap.
Right.
For during the day, the optical quality between these is not a huge difference. Although there is obviously a difference, but it's not hugely influential. But the reticle is. Reticles matter. Every time you look through a scope, you see the reticle. I really like the way Schmidt did the GR2ID reticle. And the 5 to 25 Schmidt, in terms of color management and everything, is still an amazing scope, 15 years after. It's a testament to that original design is that we're still talking about it, right?
Yeah.
So if I were to pick one, I'd pick that one because of the reticle in many ways.
Now, if I had my choice of magnification range of all these, it would be the 3 to 18 by 50.
Interesting.
That is a very good general purpose magnification range, yes.
Because I shoot a 5 to 25 to 50. I actually much prefer having a 50 millimeter objective over the 56 just because I can mount the 50 lower to the bore of the rifle. So I'm going to be shooting with a 3 to 18 this year on my new rifle I'm building for PRS.
Interesting. So kind of just to flip that question, I know that Ilya, you and I have spoken a little bit about this upcoming season and you wanted to do some of the NRL Hunter matches.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it, yeah.
So if someone was to flip it and say, okay, what scope are you going to be shooting for the NRL Hunter matches if you had to pay your own money, though? Not one that you got as a loaner or, anything like that. But if you had to pay regular price for an NRL Hunter scope, what would you
there is not quite enough detail in that question because it depends on whether they're trying to make 12 pounds or 16 pounds, right?
Okay, so I believe you're going to shoot your fix and you can make it
If I shoot one, it's going to be 12. And because of that, it's going to be a Vortex Razor HDL HT 4.5 to 22 by 50.
Okay. And if you were willing to go to the 16-pound division,
that becomes a tougher call because it kind of depends on which gun it is, right? So if I was going to go to a 16-pound division, I can put a freaking tangent on my fix and easily make weight.
Yes.
Because my gun is light. My gun with the Razor HDL HT is 9 pounds, I think, or 9.5, something like that. So I have plenty of weight to spare for bipods and all sort of shit. And at 16, I can put pretty much any scope. Generally, if you're just starting out, if you do not already have a very lightweight, accurate rifle and all that, you really should be looking at the Leopold Mark Vs. I mean, for the magnification stuff, the 5 to 25 is very lightweight for what it is.
Yep.
And that should be probably at the top of your list because now they have this PR2 mil reticle,
Yes.
which is a perfectly legitimate reticle. As is right now, if I was starting out, I would be looking at Leupold Mark V. I also would take a very, very close look at the US Optics FDN 17X. I actually have one. It's a 3.2 to 17 by 50. It's a really legitimately good scope. It has a little tunneling on the low end, which I don't like, but the field of view on the mid to high magnifications is awesome. The eyepiece disappears. It has a really nice feel to that scope. And it's about 30 ounces.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another.
So I'd be really looking at these, and it's it's still expensive, but they're all under $3,000. In practical terms, in my case, once again, I have a Tangent and I have a Razor Gen 3. If I was spending my own money, I don't know if I'd be able to convince myself to buy a Tangent because I'm not that good. If by some miracle I went and shot a couple of competitions and did okay and really got hooked on it, maybe. But also, if I were building a gun from scratch, I don't know if I'd be willing to allocate that much weight budget to a rifle. Maybe I would try to go with a sturdier barrel and all that sort of stuff. Because remember, so if I'm going to go shoot an Unreal Hunter competition, I have no expectations of placing anything other than last, right? Because I'm going to go and do it with a lightweight freaking rifle that I hunt with, chambered for 308, okay? I'm not gaming this in the slightest.
And be quite honest with you, one of the rifles that I was actually going to go do NRL Hunter with for the production class was a Savage 110 Tactical in 308.
Yeah, I have the fix with a carbon fiber barrel. It's chambered for 308. That's a gun I shot at sheep with and I hunt with. It has a scope on it. I'm not touching it. Everybody should have one good 308. If I'm going to go shoot an NRL Hunter competition, it's going to be the rifle I actually hunt with.
Yep.
Right? Like, I'm not going to try to figure out how I'm going to get the lowest possible recoil. I'm not going to add weights to it to make weight limit. This is going to be what I use. Because to me, that is the spirit of the competition.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, it's easier for me to say because I assume that I'm going to suck, and I have really good evidence that I do. So if I was a good enough shot to be in a contention, maybe I'd start gaming the system. I don't know if I'd be able to resist.
I'll be honest with you. If I had to choose a scope for NRL Hunter, it'd probably be the same scope I'm going to choose for PRS, which is the Athlon Aries ETR UHD 3 to 18 by 50.
It's actually a nice scope. Athlon did a really good job with it.
Yes, and I'm going with that scope because of weight. It's about 32, 33 ounces, 34 millimeter tube. It's got plenty of adjustment for what I need, and then all around, because with an NRL Hunter, you're barely going to go to a match that you're going to shoot 1,000 yards with. So with PRS, a couple of the matches I go to out here in Montana, they're reaching out 1,200, 1,300. And now with them opening up the new Hidden Valley Ranch out in Three Forks, so I'm going there my first match this month. It's going to be. I've had a lot of people tell me it's going to be a challenge with what I shoot because I'm shooting 6 millimeter, but I'm willing to take that chance, especially with the rifle I have set up now, because both my rifles are going to be chambered in 6 GT. So I really like that cartridge. I know a lot of people are dashers and VR guys, but I like the GT for my own personal reasons. But I mean, for NRL Hunter, my other choice of scope would be the GPO 4.5 to 27 by 50, because 34 millimeter tube, 36 mils of adjustment, and it's only 31 ounces.
Interesting. Okay.
Because it's not a Christmas tree style reticle. It's an up and down with half mil hash marks. So you have a nice field of view with a reticle that doesn't have a lot going on with it.
It's a reasonable point of view. So I will say I've mentioned it in the past, right? A lot of companies are touting lots of adjustment, 36 mils, etc. It's all great. Will, what's the maximum adjustment you've ever dialed in a PRS match?
Less than 15, honestly. Only when I shoot ELR matches have I gone over 15, but in a PRS match, I think even with my 25 Creed, a mile was less than 15 mils.
Yeah, that's exactly. So I don't get. It's nice to have lots of adjustment. I use a lot of adjustment, and I shoot subsonics far away and rimfires and all that. Basically, ELR for a given cartridge, right? So, rimfire ELR is really interesting for me. Aside from that, I don't care too much about having 30 or 40 mils of adjustment. I just don't need it. Right?
Okay, for me, 30, 40 mils of adjustment is nice to have on my ELR rifle or my long.
Correct. ELR, yes, absolutely. But for
I'm shooting the right-on 525 by 50 X5 Conqueror on my competition rifle right now for PRS, and I really like that scope. And I think after zero, I only got about 12 and a half, maybe 13 mils of adjustment.
Nice.
So, and honestly, I don't think I dial more than 10.
Exactly.
Maybe 11 at that.
So what I want basically, so in practical terms, once I have everything set up for almost everything I do, I want basically 12 milliradian of consistent adjustment. 12 gets through 8 almost normal cartridges out to about the edge of the supersonic range, and we all usually stay well within that, outside of the ELR pursuits. So interesting question, was front focal plane available for the 2000 and 2012? So Will was probably still in kindergarten. I don't know about Derek.
The only scope I can think of back in 2012 that was first focal plane was the Gen 1 Razor.
So Gen 1 Razor was right at 2000, SWFA 520 by 50, Leopold Mark IV ERT. Miopta had a couple of front focal plane rifle scopes, Miostar R1, and there were a couple others. It wasn't like today. It's a different world now.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, the Gen 1 Razor is still one of my favorite scopes.
It's still a good scope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had one of those when I first started out. Not a bad scope at all.
It's a funny thing. Once again, like the Schmidt 525 in a different field, though, I can take a Schmidt and be perfectly competitive as I can be with anything else. I can take the Razor 520 and be just as competitive.
Mm-hmm.
As long as the reticle is reasonable, it's fine. All right. Let's see. Moving right along. Well, we just learned something about Mr. Slev Guns. Apparently, he speaks English, Russian, and Ebonics.
Okay. All right.
Okay. I'm so sorry he missed this, but okay. All right. Let's see. Oh, Jesus. Mr. Prone Wolf, who shoots a lot at high magnification. My goal for the year is 1K with the 22 LR and 2.5K with 6.5 Creed.
Tall orders.
It is a good goal to have. That's all I can say. It's all I can say about this. Since last time I was trying to do some precision stuff with the 22. I think I told you this story. I had 6.5 milliradian of wind hold at 100 yards out here.
Yeah. I remember that.
1,000 yards should be interesting. But doesn't mean I'm not going to try.
Yeah, I only know currently of one person that's done it, 1K with a 22, and that's Paul Phillips. And the way that they had to do it was they actually put out, because you can't see anything from the target at that distance, so they just put out like white butcher paper out there, and that's basically what they're shooting. So you shoot it a bunch of times, you don't know if you hit shit or not, and then you drive down to the target and then see, oh yeah, there's a couple bullet holes in this thing. All right, I guess I hit it. So I mean, it's not impossible, but that also requires a lot of specialized equipment. You're going to need a lot of cant, and you're going to need some sort of like the Night Force device or a Terra.
Take-home. Go talk to the guys at Take-home.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna need one of those.
Yeah.
No, but it's fun. It is fun. It is a blast. Trying to shoot I've got the Voodoo coming and a few other things.
You're gonna love the Voodoo.
And an Anschutz and a couple other things. I'm gonna have a blast with that.
Yeah.
See, I can't get into the high 22 market. My wife will kill me.
Yeah, but let me tell you. So the other day I was at Angeles, the range that Ely and I used to shoot at, and I was on my buddy's Voodoo, his 22, and he's got it in an MDT chassis and everything, and he's got a Schmidt 5-25 on it. And once we figured out the wind, which was 0.8 at 600 yards, I was racking that plate all day. And we were able to see it because I had my spotter 60 out there. It was hardly moving the swinger out there, but it is a lot of fun to hit something.
So come visit. I've got plates out to 800 yards here on any given day. Angels does have wind occasionally, but usually it's not too bad. It's kind of in the valley, so you have fishtailing wind and stuff facing you left, right, not so much.
Right.
Come on out. Of course, now he's gonna come out. It's gonna be like one quiet day a year, but
yeah, right.
Well, if everything works out, I'll be out in the Fort Worth area at the end of August.
Well, let me know when you do. I go there once a month. So.
I'm trying to get a spot for the King of 1 Mile.
Okay, there we go. Anyhow, so this comment was probably when we were talking about the turrets, toolless turrets.
Yeah.
So Striker and Element have this somewhat standard, the ones you're talking about, somewhat standard turrets from Light Optics Works. They are toolless if you want to reset it, but zero stop is not toolless. That's where the hard part is. For the zero stop, you still need that little wrench, and there are 3 screws.
Yeah, I believe those are on clutch systems for the zero stop. No?
No, I don't. Well, they have this little disc. I don't know what you call a clutch system. It's a little disc. You loosen it and you drop it down, and it engages a stop.
Okay, yeah, that's similar to what I was thinking about. Yeah.
My way of practice ALR is air guns, 21 mils. Yes, I have a 25 cal FX Dreamline.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. I prefer rimfire, but I shoot air guns quite a lot as well. Let's see. Echo.
Okay, guys. I hate to say this, but I gotta get going. I do apologize.
Thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, guys. Yep. Will, it was nice meeting you. I wish I could have met you on the show.
Yeah.
Next year we'll plan better.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, right? And see you out there on the competition field, bud.
For sure.
Later.
Right. Good night. Yeah, we lost another one. So there are a couple of questions that we need to. But almost 3 hours. I tried not to do that again, but I feel bad that I missed January. So. All right. Let's see what else we got. Mr. Prone Wolf is running out of adjustment. And apparently I'm getting echo on my audio occasionally. How interesting. I don't hear that. I have an earpiece in my ear. It's possible. I'll need to. So when we wrap up, I'll mess with the settings a little bit and see. Will, do you hear me echo or not?
Not on my end. On my end, the audio sounds fine.
Interesting. Okay. Looking through it. Mr. Ultimate Reloader, Travis is back. I hope your dinner was great. I'm starving here, for the record. I'm on the verge of weight loss. I might squeeze under 800 pounds someday. Okay. Somebody says hi in Russian, despite having a name that is not Russian. Okay. Здравствуйте. Any new optic mounts coming out? I haven't looked too carefully. So Primary Arms has a new single-piece optics mount. It's actually not bad. It's pretty lightweight, presumably to match their new compact low-power variable. So far, I've looked at it carefully. It seems good. Mm-hmm. There's not a ton of innovation with optic mounts, honestly, and I'm not convinced a ton of innovation is all that required.
Yeah, so I actually ended up looking at the zero compromise one-piece mounts that they came out with. Mm-hmm. And they looked pretty nice. One thing that I liked about their design was the bubble level that's incorporated is on a magnet. It's a swinging arm that's on a magnet, so that it'll stay attached to the body if you don't want it out there. But you can flip it open, and it'll stay there in your field of view if you shoot with both eyes open. And you can actually swap it from right side to left side, so you don't need to get a left or right hand specific mount. You just unscrew it and flip it to the other side.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So they're pretty good. They're definitely on the heavier side, so it's definitely something that if you shouldn't be concerned about weight. But it was pretty cool. And then they also have the ability to attach like some people call them diving boards or raptor rails or things like that on the top of the scope rings. But just basically like a Picatinny rail on the top of the scope ring for anything like a scope mounted laser rangefinder or whatever you want to put up there. Mm-hmm. So those are pretty cool. But other than that, I didn't see anything super crazy on the optic mount. I did see the Arc Embrace though. That not super new. It's been out for a few months, but
This one,
yeah,
it's actually a nice mount.
yeah.
I think that the arc rings, like with the hinge and stuff, is a solution looking for a problem, personally, but it works.
Yes, this is fair. I would say that, and it's nothing personal against Ted, but I think that's what a lot.
He's a dick. Oh, yeah, that's fair.
I think that's a lot of his designs are a solution looking for a problem. But I can't knock the guy that his engineering is pretty sound.
Yeah, he's a good engineer. He does good stuff. I'm not. Yeah, he's sort of an arrogant jackass, and so am I. So we don't see eye to eye. But I have appreciation for him. He's a smart guy.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting question. Is the ZCO 8 to 40 too much for PRS? Doesn't seem much different than 7 to 35 or 6 to 36.
So the only reason that I made a comment about why I won't be personally looking too hard at the 8 to 40 is only because it's literally 17 inches long before you put a sunshade on it. Now, I don't really ever shoot with a sunshade. I've only had to do that like twice in a match before. So I carry one, but I don't actually leave it on there. But honestly, like when I was shooting my 7 to 35 attackers, I never really used 35 power in an actual match ever. One, because it constricts your field of view. Two, it gets really tight behind the scope, like your proverbial eye box. And three, just mirage. I mean, you'll get completely washed out by mirage at that high of a magnification. Like the highest I've ever cranked a scope in a match, honestly, is probably like maybe 22 power. I don't even think I've ever gotten to 25 power. So that's the only reason. Now, it's perfectly capable. You can go out there and shoot. I mean, lots of guys are winning with 7 to 35s. I'm sure this season, a lot of guys will do well with a 6 to 36, and there will be a lot of guys running the ZCO 8 to 40 as well. But just for me personally, a 5 to 27 is more than enough. And I like the 5 to 27 because it's lighter, so I can still keep it as my NRL hunter gun on my scope. I can keep that same scope on my hunter gun.
Good answer. Look, so I briefly looked at 8 to 40 before they started yelling at me. Seemed like a good scope. Generally like the scopes. I'm not a high magnification hog. My one exception is that for like close range, ultra accurate 22s, that's where I use high magnification.
Yes.
Otherwise, very high magnification doesn't do shit for me.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, 8 to 40 is not hugely interesting. There's nothing wrong with that scope, right? On the other hand, for this kind of stuff, I never go below 8 really, so it doesn't matter. But for example, the type of things I'm interested in NRL Hunter and all of those, I do a ton of shooting offhand, right? Because I started hunting, and that's important for me. Like, I went elk hunting last month, and I had such wobbly ass shooting positions. I'm rethinking everything I do, right? Technical term, wobbly ass. But because I was wobbling over there, trying to shoot uphill into the sun, and this freaking elk that's blending in from using a muzzle loader.
Yeah, there you go.
300 yards. I got an elk. But it's other than this close range ultra precision stuff, which I don't do that much, I might a little more. I don't use high magnification a ton. Now I do use high magnification a good bit when I'm spotting for other people, right? And I dial it up, look at the wind, look at the kind of stuff. So it's nice to have, but for shooting standing, I don't like to go above 5, maybe 6 sometimes. So for me, 8 in the low end is a little bit high. Not quite my thing. Like the Razor, the new Gen 3 Razor goes down to 6. It's okay. I probably would have preferred 5 because 36 doesn't do much for me. But for marketing, they want to go above 35 because attacker is 7 to 35 and it's very successful.
Yeah.
So nothing quite wrong with it for competition stuff. For me, it doesn't do anything really. Like of all the, I will say, so I've been openly say this. It's one of the reasons ZCOM people don't like me. Of the ZCOM scopes, the one I like the most is the 4 to 20, because the direct competition isn't that much. It's really nice. 5 to 27 is really nice, but I slightly prefer the tangent, which is 5 to 25, right? So it's head to head. Both really nice scopes. I slightly prefer the tangent. 4 to 20, that's probably my favorite in that magnification range. Right?
Yeah.
With the 8 to 40, we'll see how it stacks up, because right now there isn't a ton there. It's probably going to be better than the attacker, but They sacrifice some adjustment range. So like for ELR rimfire, it won't do it. It has less adjustment range than the other ones. So we'll see. Nice target shooting scope. Like F-class guys will like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you shoot any kind of F-class or bench rest, I think that could be a really good option.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, so excellent. So Travis agreed with me on the spirit of the competition. Shoot what you hunt. Yeah, for me, Narelle Hunter is that. I'm gonna next time I see Travis Ishida, I'll try to convince him to add some sort of a standing, unsupported part to the competition, and not this.
Fair.
I would and add it to the regular Narelle. I want to see you guys do that with your 28 pounds 6 dashers.
Oh, I've had to do it, and let me tell you, it is not fun. It is not fun.
Okay. Yeah. If the next time I see you and your left biceps and the support hand, looks like Schwarzenegger, I know you've been shooting off hand.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what else we got. We need to be wrapping up, guys. We're at almost 3 hours, and I'm on the verge of weight loss here. Okay, that's actually a question for Will. Follow up on the other PRS question. So, do you think lower end power starting at 7 will have limitations for PRS matches?
No, I mean, honestly, so in PRS matches, you're never really going to go below 10 power at all to shoot these targets. And honestly, when I'm shooting a match, my scope stays between 12 and 15 power. That's kind of the general range of where you want to be. That gives you a good amount of field of view downrange, so you can spot your misses if you miss, or you can see on the plate where you hit if you did hit. And at the same time, it gives you enough magnification so that you can actually still see, like I say, where you hit on the plate. So 12 to 15 is a good range. Now, I wouldn't personally, and I have done it, but I've shot 3 to 15 scopes. That Premier, I don't know if you remember, Ilya, that I had that Premier.
I remember that.
Yeah, so I shot that in a lot of matches my first year competing, but I didn't like being maxed out at 15 power on my scope most of the time. I like a little headroom just in case if I am shooting a really small target, then I can crank it up to say 20. But no, 7 at the bottom end will never limit you. I mean, everybody wants to talk about the tunneling in a Schmidt-Bender 5 to 25. Essentially, that's a 7 to 25 scope. And for a long time, that was one of, if not the number one high-end scope in PRS, because there weren't a lot of tier 1 options at that price point. Before there was a Tangent and a Z-Comp and a 7 to 35 attacker. I mean, for a lot of years, Night Force never even did a first focal plane. It took them a long time to jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah, there were some discussions of that.
Yeah. So, but to answer your question, no. 7 would never limit you in a PRS match.
Have you ever given up on a scope just because of poor eye relief eye box? If yes,
yes. For me personally, it was that, and I have some friends there, and they're great guys. But I've even told them at Loopold that Mark 6 3.8 to 16 by 44, or whatever the hell it was. I had
3 to 18 by 44.
Yes, I hated that thing. It's probably one of literally the worst scopes I've ever tried in terms of, like, you crank it up to 18 and I probably have better luck looking through a toilet paper tube. Like, it was really, really tight. Mine, I again, sample variation of 1, but mine, when you cranked it up to 18, like, the distortion and the CA just kind of went all over the place. It was not, it was a scope that was built for a specific purpose, and that specific purpose was not pleasing me.
Yeah. I tested the Mark 6. Mine was not as bad as yours, but it was not great. It's really interesting. As much as I like the Mark 5, and I really like the Mark 5s now that they have better reticles, especially. Yes. I really like the Mark 5s. As much as I like the Mark 5s, that's about as much as I dislike the Mark 6. There was so much stuff wrong with that scope. Yeah. And they kind of knew it. That's why they designed Mark 5 to be better.
Yeah. I just personally think they did a bad naming job, because people just automatically assume, 6 is higher than 5, so it must be a better scope, but it's not the case. The Mark 5 is actually a better scope than the Mark 6.
Mark 5 is a legitimately good scope.
Yeah.
All right. Another person who can't quite spell my name. Correct me if I'm wrong. The really good 1XL pivot has only maybe one application on tactical optics division, 3-gun, because it only allows one optics. That's one of applications. Having good 1X has many advantages.
Mm-hmm.
Right, not the least of which is redundancy. If you have an offset red dot and good 1X, you can choose. It's easier for me to go around corners with a primary optic rather than offset red dot sights. And then there is a parallax, astigmatism issue. As I get older, my ability to use red dot sights is going to diminish. It's already getting worse. It's not bad, still usable, but it's going to get worse. Prismatics and low power variables take care of my astigmatism issues. So there are many reasons to have a good 1X scope. That's why I look at them so much. Okay. Will, you still there? Your picture froze.
Oh, yeah, no,
you're
I'm
moving again.
Yep.
Okay. Do you guys use a Arisaka triangle scope mounting tool? I found it really handy. Yeah, it works really well. I don't use it. I have others, but it works well. Let's see. I'm kind of trying to see if there's anything optics specific, and we need to be wrapping up. Bubble levels, mischief machines. Burst levels are bad. Okay. Tomorrow I'll be shooting beyond 1,000 in minus 15 Fahrenheit. Good luck. You're a braver man than I. If it's minus 15 Fahrenheit, I am going to be doing exactly what I'm doing now. I'll be drinking nice bourbon, just probably not in front of the camera.
Fair. Let me see.
All right, what else? Oh, MK Machine makes good 3D printed bubble levels and throw levels at similar pricing. Good stuff. Yeah, I'm not touching anything made by MK Machine. Tyler pissed me off. Of personal reasons, nothing against this stuff. Just don't want to have anything to do with Tyler. That's interesting. That does answer my question. My 4-20 is limiting me. It always seems like I was maxed. At 100 yards, I want to see the holes to not break the cheek well to do binos. So you have, Drew has a 4-20 XTR2, and it sounds like you have the one before they made optical changes. So I can see bullet holes with high quality optics like Z-comp tangents and others. I'm comfortably seeing bullet holes in reasonable light at 100 yards on 7/8 power. If you can't see it on 20, yeah, maybe you're due for a new scope. Will, you probably have better eyes than I do. At what magnification can you see, let's say, 6mm bullet holes at 100 yards?
On paper, if I always try to use those shoot and sees just for clarification because it's way easier. But if I'm just using like one of those like ones that they give you for free at the range, I can barely start to pick them up at 15 power on a 6 mil. I mean, provided the glass is decent glass, then yeah, about 15 power, I could probably see
100 yards, you need 15? How interesting.
Okay. Yeah. Less than that, it would have to be like with my Premiere, that 3-15 Premiere, I could see it at about 12. But if you're talking like a mid-level or lower level optic, I'd probably need 15.
How interesting. Yeah, with the tangent, I can see it in about 8.
Yeah.
But it's in reasonable light, right? So
okay.
If the light gets worse and you're looking at a black hole on a black target, that's different.
Yeah.
So regarding tool steroids, you're right, I forgot about the zero stop. Unrelated, but is the LHT made by Light Optics work? So somebody asked me that question. I looked around and I realized that Vortex does not disclose where exactly different stuff is made. So I shouldn't either, right? It's made in Japan by a really nice factory.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. Like with the Razer Gen 2s, Gen 3s, they openly say it made by Light Optics Works. I did not see them say anywhere where the LHT is made, so I shouldn't. Oh, there we go. You're not the only one hating the Mark 6.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know too many people that had good experiences with them. It was not,
Yeah, okay. Mr. Prone Wolf. Nice sculptor. Okay, where's the next step up? I should look up from attacker. Look, attacker is a pretty nice scope, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he take that from a guy who is not crazy about Night Force overall as a company, but attacker is a nice scope.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for more performance, it's basically tangent, a ZCO, and some of the Schmitz, but it's not a lot more performance. Tangent will stick out. Will and I did this some years ago now. With really crappy air, tangent has some weird magic to it, but still, it's not a huge difference.
Yeah.
Right.
The only caveat I would make to that is depending on which attacker. So if he has the 5 to 25, from my experience, the glass on the 7 to 35s are better than the 5 to 25s.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
And the jump from a 5 to 25 attacker to a ZCO or a tangent will be bigger than the jump from a 7 to 35. Honestly, if you have a 7 to 35, man, I can't honestly, unless you just have money burning a hole in your pocket, I can't honestly say just save that money and just put more rounds downrange instead.
Okay, so I will say this, right? It depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for high magnification, the most center field performance, get a March 5 to 42.
Yeah.
The edge is not as good. Center field is amazing, stays that way out to 42 power and all that. There are some downsides. Shallow depth of field and all that. But for paper punching, March is probably the best scope. Right? If you're shooting plates, yeah, you can step up. It's not a huge difference. Like if you have a $1,000 scope and you're stepping up, you'll see a huge difference. Once you get past about $2,000 thereabouts, it's really diminishing returns.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
And it's once when I talk about fancy scopes, right? I always do two categories, right? Minor object, that's category 1. I'm spending my own money, it's category 2. The answer is always different.
Yep.
Right? Because with the really fancy stuff, as much as I'm an optics nerd, I love fancy glass. Yeah, it's really incremental returns for a lot more money. All right, Travis left us. Good night, sir. If you see this again. Good of you to join us.
Yep.
Well, it's here in a Gen 3 Razor review. Haven't got mine out to look at yet. Billy's telling me he loves his. Yeah, he does. Look, I've been sick. I'm just behind. So that little tripod thing you saw with a few scopes here and there, that's my next thing to wrap up. And after that, I'm probably going to do a video on the Razor Gen 3. So toward the end of this month, very likely. Oh. Last question for Will. Was there any shooter that performed well with quite cheap scopes that you feel impressed?
Oh, man. Well, I guess it depends on what your definition of a cheap scope is. Now, I don't want to just go and start calling every brand under the sun cheap or anything like that. But a couple people that stand out to me, Robert Brantley won King of 2 Mile with a Bushnell DMR2. Now, Bushnell's not exactly my first choice for King of 2 Miles, but he did it. And Robert's a great shooter. He shoots a lot of PRS. He's the manners guy. So, that was really impressive to me. I want to say, and again, I don't, I don't want to seem like I'm calling every scope under the sun cheap, but you look at guys that are doing really, really well with the Leupold Mark Vs, like the 5 to 25s and whatnot. Those aren't tangent level scopes. They're still pretty expensive. They're not super cheap, but they're not holding anybody back. Look at, all the guys that won matches with Razor Gen 2s, and you can find those for $1,500 used. Dave Preston, Allison Zane. They've all won multiple matches with Razor 2s. If you're talking like truly budget, like under 1,000, to be honest, you won't see any of the top guys running anything that low, mostly because they have sponsorship deals. And so even if a company that they shoot for makes scopes in that price point, they're going to obviously take something in the higher price point like Brantley, and he shoots for Bushnell, but he's not going to pick, a Forge series Bushnell. He's going to pick a DMR series.
Probably XRS. XRS is actually quite nice.
Yeah, or something like that. The other thing, and it's not a scope, but and I really want to get this point across to a lot of people because of the NRL Hunter series, and I see so much negativity around it because people are calling it another gear race. That's not true, because someone that's performed really, really well is Rusty Ulmer. And if you guys don't know who he is.
I remember Rusty, yeah.
Yeah, feel free to look him up. So he last year finished 3rd overall in the championship match and won the factory division shooting a factory Tika. Like the guy showed up with a factory Tika and a bipod, and he was shooting with Night Force NX8, the 4-32.
Yeah.
That's what he was using, which honestly, by all accounts, for the money is not a great scope. But it's lightweight and it fit on his rifle to make under 12 pounds. But it's literally a factory Tika. Like you're not allowed to change anything. It's the factory barrel with a bipod on it, and he put some tape and some foam for a cheek riser. Like that's.
And Rusty is not a young guy, not like he's 26-year-old top physical shape guy.
No, okay. Rusty is in his late 60s. So I mean, it's just a testament to, honestly, I don't like it when people call it a gear race, because yes, there is some level of gear that can get you somewhere, but at the end of the day, the top shooters like Rusty, you hand him a factory Tika and he's still going to wipe the floor with everybody. Or if you give him a $5,000 custom build, he's still going to wipe the floor. It doesn't matter.
So the example I've used in the past, we've had this question some past live casts, right? So Will is a good shot, but you are not in danger of winning a national match anytime soon. Sorry to say,
Yes.
buddy.
No,
because I'm like with guys like Phil and Rusty and all those guys.
Yeah.
But there are different. There are levels here, right? So I can have the fanciest rifle with a tangent on it, and you can give Will a production Tika something with a $300 10-axis WFA scope. He's probably going to beat me in competition. Here's the fun part. I shoot by standards of an average gun nut, I shoot more in a month than an average gun nut does in a year. And by standard of normal people, I'm not that bad. I always say I'm not a good shot. I'm not, because I'm friends with people who are good shots. But there are levels to this. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And equipment, if you are competent, equipment will help you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it will absolutely not. When you have 5 similar level shooters, better equipment will help you a little bit.
Yes.
There is no such thing as 5 same level shooters. Everybody's a little bit different conditions, different days, etc. Equipment doesn't make that much difference. Now, why do we talk about it so much? Because it's fun and it's a first world problem, and I enjoy it. Right?
Yeah,
but it's not going to compensate for bad skills.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's see. Last couple of questions. All right. Joe says you haven't mentioned March yet. Yes, I have. How's Element Nexus depth of field? It's actually quite good. Nexus is a very competent scope. Are Trihawk LPVO optics as good as? So Trihawk is not an LPVO, it's a 3-power prismatic. And I'm not sure what is it as good as. For the money, that's very good. That's a Swamp Fox Trihawk 3-power. Let's see. Mr. Prone Wolf is shooting a second focal plane scope, but we will not hold it against him.
Fair.
Nah, second focal plane works just fine if you know how far the thing is.
Yeah, or just dial for everything and you'll be okay.
Correct. And he also likes shooting at high power. So
that's fair.
Okay. Let's see. What's your favorite TT reticle for hunting? Currently, I like Attacker Morty, not Christmas trees, but I want a Tangent. Tangent has their hunter scope. If you don't need Christmas tree reticles, it's a simple mill reticle, like a duplex type with a few mill hash marks. Nice, simple, visible in any light. I mean, for basic hunting, that's probably the best one. Really works really well. Low power, high power, just nice design. That's in a 3 to 15 by 50 hunter.
Yeah, I like the just the Gen 2 mill dot, honestly.
Yeah, Gen 2 mill dot works very well. That's available on TT315M. The problem with Gen 2 mill dot, they make so few of them, it's hard to find. The hunter is basically a similar idea.
Okay, yeah.
Just the thick bars are a little bit closer together, so when it comes on low power, it's a very visible thing. And okay. Then I will say, if you're shooting any type of match with second focal plane, it could be holding you back. That is true. However, the 7 to 35 is a nice optic, and the increase to a tangent to ZCO is tough unless you don't mind spending it. Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. I like second focal plane for ELR purposes, but I might try nice front focal plane next. Like I said, I generally lean toward FFP for most things. And for a really, really very simple reason, I use the reticle for wind holds all the time, and I don't want to be worried what magnification I'm on. That's pretty much it. There's really nothing else to it. I've used second focal plane for a long time. I have quite a few here. I have a Delta 5 to 50 second focal plane. I use it for like air guns, precision rimfires all the time. It's not making me shoot any worse. My inability to read wind is making me shoot worse. The scope has nothing to do with it. And on this, we're going to wrap up. Thank you, DLO and Will. We are very welcome. It was a great live show tonight. Always learn a lot, and the chat was a lot of fun. And thank you, guys. Thank you, all of you who stuck with us for over 3 hours. I really do appreciate it. This was fun, even though Mr. Slavgans wore a Red Adidas suit again. Next time, I'm going to ban Red Adidas, but we'll see.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Will does have his own YouTube channel. It says Covered Noob 5. That's the name of the YouTube channel. He does pretty good coverage. And unlike me, Will actually goes and shoots in competitions. So he has a much better feel of what the better shooters in the country are really using. And I learned about that primarily by picking his brain. So check out his channel while you're at it. And I'll be back here in 2 weeks. I don't yet know with what topic, but I'm sure I'll figure something out. I'm planning to have a bunch of different people come on as guests and cover different things with me. Will, thank you, sir.
Yep, absolutely.
Stick around for a moment. I want to try the sound thing. Just give me 2 more minutes. Okay?
Yep, no problem.
Right. Thank you all, and you have a good night.